I am now live. Everybody is running late tonight. This might be the first time I've ever gone live by myself. And moving the computer kicked me off. I am back. Live by myself. Seems everybody else is running late. This might be the first time that everybody's running late. But what the heck? I figured I'd come on time just because I'm punctual. I like to be punctual. So what did I get this week? 7 comic books and some trade paperbacks. I read a graphic novel. Let me show you. First of all, let me show you. Last week I mentioned it. There's a book that I've been wanting to get for about a decade now called Luba by Gilbert Hernandez. I've taken it out of the library. There's one big hardcover collection of it, but it's smaller size. It's like 6x9, the collected edition. So I decided to go back and get used versions of the trade paperback of Luba. There's a third one. Unfortunately, I ordered the third one, and they sent me the wrong book. I got it off of eBay. It was only $5, shipping included. And I got it, and it was funny. I remember going up to the mailbox, and it was this size. I'm like, it's supposed to be this size, and it's this. That didn't seem right. I'm like, did I order some? Because a lot of these Love and Rockets books have different printings and different sizes on them. Like, did I somehow order not the full-size trade paperback? And this is Luba, the Book of Ophelia, and this is Luba in America. I think there's another one called Luba Three Sisters that I'm waiting for. I had to go order that. That's what this one was supposed to be, Luba Three Sisters, but instead they came through with this. And I actually emailed the place, the eBay store I got it from, and was like, you sent me the wrong book. Do you perchance have the right one? They're like, no. If you want to return, do this. I'm like, you know what? For $5, it wasn't worth a return, even though I have this already. But it's been sitting on my shelf. I think the first printing date is 2007 on this. So I probably got this somewhere around 2007, the one that's up on a top shelf too. So I was like, I'll keep this. And then since it was down, I decided to read it. Because, like I said, I don't think I've read it since 2007, 15 years ago. Who knows? Maybe it took me a while to get to, and I read it, 13 years ago. But it's been a long, long time. But I think this one is also, it doesn't say so on this, but he did later graphic novels that were supposed to be adaptations of movies that one of his characters made. So in the Palomar series, in the Luba series, Luba is one of 3 sisters. It could actually be called 3 Sisters. She was just the first one that it was introduced, but the Luba stories are about all 3 sisters. And one of them is Fritzy. And she's a B-movie actress from Mexico. Palomar is a Mexican town, so. And so the later graphic novels were supposed to be movies that Fritz made in the Love and Rockets Palomar continuity. And this seems like it is, but I think this is before he came up with that idea. But still, it's kind of like it because it doesn't explicitly say it, but one of the characters in a supporting role in here, she's not the main player. Fritz is in, let me see if I can find her. She plays a prostitute. So there she is. The one with the big boobs. All 3 sisters have large chests. But She plays a prostitute in this. She's a prostitute, and so I assume he was going for the same idea for this one, even if it's not explicitly said, because she's not. Well, I guess she wasn't always the star in the other one. I'll have to go reread them. I haven't read them in a while. Well, this is really dark. It's the story of this little girl named what is it? Princess? Empress? What do they call her? What was her name? And it starts with like a murder. Empress. Oh, there's Chris Giruso.
Oh.
Good evening, Chris. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? Can you hear me?
Oh, hold on. I don't have my speaker on. I just realized that. Being that there was no one here before the show, I didn't realize my speaker wasn't on.
Go put that speaker on, bro.
I got to put that speaker on. How are you doing this evening?
Fine. Still coloring.
Coloring. This is indeed a Gilberto, Gilbert Hernandez graphic novel from 2007. And really darker than it starts with a woman named Empress, a little girl. And it's the story of this little girl who's like living in a dump. She's like been cast, thrown away with a bunch of other teenagers. She's like 6. There's a bunch of teenagers who she's living with, and their life is just miserable. There's murder and death, and then she grows up and eventually escapes to a middle-class suburban existence, and she's not much better at that either. Have you read much Love and Rockets, Chris?
I've read absolutely zero.
Zero?
Yeah.
All the years you've been reading comics, you haven't read any Love and Rockets?
I haven't.
How come?
I don't know.
Just hasn't tickled your fancy and came across your desk?
I've heard it's really good, and I just guess it's just going to be one of those things on the pile of classics I've never read.
Ah.
I'm never going to read again.
What other classics are on that pile?
I've never read Frank Miller's Daredevil.
No? Have you read what Frank Miller have you read?
But it didn't stop me from doing a mini Marvel's Electra, which I just got.
Which you just got?
I just got it.
Oh, okay. So it's a new one.
Yeah.
Here, let's
Electra
get
100.
Let's get you solo here so you can show us.
I always buy number 1s when I see them. And I always buy 100s when I see them. Every time there's a landmark, I'll buy that, If this had been just another Electra issue, it was exactly the same but had a different number, I wouldn't have bought this.
But you bought it because you've got a strip in it. You would have bought issue 97 if you had an Electra strip in it. Have you read Frank Miller's Electra graphic novel?
I have not.
Have you read Sienkiewicz Electra Assassin?
I have not.
Well, they were all before.
This page that I drew is the first page of Electra I've ever read.
Well, they were actually before your time, so that's shocking. Most people read the classics of their time. They don't necessarily go back and read all the old ones. Some people do.
No, but I'm always thinking I probably should read it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm going back and reading old John Byrne and old Walt Simons and stuff. I should be reading old Frank Miller stuff too.
Why not?
Exactly.
I read Electra Assassin once and never again. So it's not like I read it. It's not like one of the ones that gets read over and over by me. But I was just telling the story of Chance in Hell because I got sent this book by mistake. I ordered another book and they sent me this one, which I already have, but it was only $5 shipping included. So it was more trouble than it was worth to send back. And even though I have this very book up on the shelf, it's on a high shelf, so it was easier to read this one. And it was really good.
I'd read it if it was issue 100.
Well, this is a standalone graphic novel. So that's what's.
So is it a number one?
It would be a number one.
Sounds like it's a number one. You know,
it's a number one. It's a one and only.
Those are the ones that are going to be worth the most.
Speaking of worth graphic, it amazes me how we're always talking about, on this channel and other channels, how to get comics into the hands of people, kind of thing. What comics can do to. But then I had one of my old Marvel friends message me today and say, hey, can you check with your local comic shop and see if they have this trade paperback? And it was, I think, it was a George Perez and Jeff Johns Legion trade paperback. And in discussing it with him, I found out it's out of print. And I'm like, you know what? And how many of my friends who are, comic fans have no idea how comic shops work? They just don't have old out of print collected editions sitting around. I'm like, I'll ask, but they won't have it.
Well, no, that's actually the only possible source, right? If they go to Amazon and Amazon says it's out of print, then the only other option is like maybe some indie comic shop somewhere has one.
Well, you can find it used through Amazon. You can find it on eBay too.
If you've exhausted all of those,
if you walk into a random shop and ask them for a random trade paperback, odds are they don't have it, because that's not how comic shops work.
I don't think you know how comic shops work.
They can't stock up on trade paperbacks because they're competing with Amazon. My comic shop doesn't even carry trade paperbacks. I mean, they have some there, but they don't order, and they'll order any trade paperback you want. And sometimes they get them when they buy.
I think there's a shop somewhere with old trade paperbacks that nobody bought 20 years ago. They're just sitting there.
Oh yeah, they exist. But I'm saying if you walk into a random comic shop, ask for a random trade paperback,
they exist, I win.
Odds are you're not going to find it. I'm saying even comic book people don't know how comic shops work.
Doesn't sound like you know.
What do I know, really?
Yeah, you don't know.
I go every week. I know more than most. When's the last time you were at a comic shop, mister?
Who, me? I go every Wednesday.
No, you don't.
I was there 2 days ago.
You lying cartoonist, you lying cartoonist.
Talk about, man. The comic book day, Wednesday. I gotta go every Wednesday. That's part of my routine. How much?
If only you had a car to get there.
What is that? I just walk down the street.
There is actually one sleepy reader who often comments on and watches this show. Lives in where does he live? Portland, Oregon, right? It's Portland. He's got like 3 comic shops within walking distance of him. I'm like, holy cow!
See, he knows what it's like. Doesn't sound like you know how comic book shops work.
Well, I know sometimes bookstores send you the wrong freaking book. But boy, is this a good one. But a lot of people who want to read Love and Rockets, it's one of those books, one of those things that's like, well, where do I start? And I'm always like, well, pick up there's so many collected editions of it. And generally there's often an overall story arc. They're mostly self-contained. And there's original graphic novel stuff from Gilbert. Like this you could pick up and read all on its own because it has nothing to do with anything. But it is dark. If you read this one, you might not want to read any Love and Rockets. It's so dark. Tit Goblin has 2 within walking distance. 3 if I was willing to walk a bit more. Wow. Where do you live that you've got 2 in walking distance?
Every comic book shop in the country is in walking distance if you're willing to walk.
Okay, every place. Well, I just forgot that comedian's name. Good evening, Scott. How are you doing?
Hello.
Haven't seen Scott in a while.
That's true. I've been away from a while.
Hello, Scott.
Do you know Chris? Have you been on with Chris before?
I don't
Chris,
think we've met before.
This is a first. This is a first issue of a crossover.
Oh, all right.
Of a team up.
Crisis on Infinite, whatever.
If people start with this podcast, like this is going to be one of the ones like worth the most.
We'll have to slab it.
This will be the one everybody asks for our autograph on.
Right.
So have you read any good comics lately, Scott?
I bought a few the other day. I haven't got around to reading them yet. Most of them were
What'd you buy?
Most of them were back issues of Usagi Yojimbo.
Oh, okay.
What else did I find? Found a couple of back issues of a very obscure indie title from the 90s called Wandering Star.
Oh, I don't know that one at all.
Terry Wood. It's a very obscure title.
Yeah. Wandering Star. I don't think I know that one at all.
Gotcha. You'd probably like that one.
Yeah. So which volume of Usagi were you picking up back issues?
The current one.
Oh, the current one?
Yeah.
IDW?
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up with the current IDW run. Right.
Trying to catch up with Usagi.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, there was no Usagi this week.
No Sagi, no Jimbo.
No Sagi, no Jim. Has anyone watched the cartoon? I haven't bothered.
No.
I saw the trailer.
Yeah.
And I love Usagi Yojimbo, but
that's not it.
That's not it. It's like the Batman Beyond version of Usagi Yojimbo.
Ah, okay.
He's a descendant that's in a somewhat cyberpunkian future.
Ah.
But,
It's not for us, you know?
No, I think it's to attract younger viewers.
Yeah. It's for whoever likes cartoons on Netflix, not.
But then you have to spend the rest of your life explaining why you didn't think that was so great.
You can just nod your
so much. I'm like, yeah, I like the book so much. Yes,
you just nod your head and say, "I'm glad you enjoy the cartoon."
Right.
I haven't seen it.
It didn't look like a complete train wreck, but it didn't.
And it's actually named something different, isn't it? Isn't it named Samurai Rabbit or something like that?
Something, I think, Usagi Chronicles. I'm not sure.
Huh.
I'm not really sure.
Tit Goblin's from St. John's, Newfoundland. Downtown that's full of dark and indie, dank and indie titles that are new stuff and toys. In the 90s had 5. Yeah. One 30 years old and one's 20. Yeah. That's where GPAP is from, too.
Okay.
Gone. In St. John's in Newfoundland. I remember him once saying almost all of Newfoundland is in St. John's. That's where everybody lives.
Right.
That one city down the south, the port. Yeah, but this I ordered. There's a collected edition of the Gilbert stuff called Luba. That's a hardcover. Turns out it's been on my want list for like 10 years. I ended up finally taking it out of the library like 3 years ago. Really nice book, but it's smaller than this size. And it collects 3 of these books, and it's out of print. And finally, after all these years, I'm like, why don't I see if I can get these trade paperbacks cheap, which I
Right.
could. So I got like the three. Well, so far I've got two of them of the trade. Oh, this one needs to be washed. Oof. I'm in the habit of washing my used books because a lot of times they're just grimy, and I just picked this one up, and I'm like, ooh, that's doesn't feel right. I'm gonna have to wash that one. But
there's a special place in hell for booksellers that put stickers on book covers too.
That's another thing. But I ordered the third volume of this. You know, like I said, there's 3 volumes, and instead this came. Chance a Gilbert graphic novel, which with shipping was $5. So I was like, you know what? It's just easier to keep this, even though I have a copy, and buy another copy because it was like I think it cost me less than $30 to get all 3 graphic novels.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, especially like I said, the hardcover collected edition is out of print and up to about $60 to $80 now. So
Right.
I don't need to spend that much on
I found it amazing how much my perspective on wanting hardcovers changed once I wasn't making as much money as I used to.
Oh yeah.
It's like the demand went way down. You know?
Oh yeah. It's amazing how that happens.
Yeah.
Jackie wipes down all his used books too. Yeah. I mean, I just picked this up and went, ooh. I hadn't really handled it since I got it.
Yeah.
But the other one I wiped down. A damp cloth with some 409 on it. I take the grime off it.
I saw something earlier today that I never thought would interest me in a million years.
Yeah.
There was an announcement for an upcoming Marvel Spider-Man project.
Whoa.
That had Neil Gaiman's name attached to it.
Whoa.
Neil Gaiman, Kurt Busiek, Terry Dodson, and Michael Cho amongst the other people that were assigned to it. That's an interesting talent pool there.
Mm-hmm. Mind the Comics is welcoming you back, Scott.
Oh, Gus.
Yeah.
So I thought, is like that a cold front emanating up out of the ground? Is hell frozen over, and I'm actually looking forward to something Marvel related?
Not that I'm going to buy it, but in this week's comic shop news, I saw something that was kind of cool looking, and that's Michael Allred doing a Superman story.
Oh, okay, cool.
I was like, oh, cool.
Is Laura doing the coloring on it?
I assume so, but it didn't list the colorist.
It's gonna be new number 1.
New number 1. Jump right on that.
I'm gonna buy that. It's gonna be worth the most.
Worth $1 million.
I could see Mike Allred drawing Ambush Bug.
Man, yeah, I always liked his.
I can see that.
He was one of those indie guys who now does mainstream stuff. So I never buy his stuff anymore.
I don't think what's the last indie thing that he did.
It's been a while.
Madman.
I don't even know if it was Madman. He did the Atomics after Madman, but that was 20 years ago. He's been doing mostly DC stuff and Marvel stuff.
And if you can actually make money.
Yeah, I guess he's making money doing it, so why not? Why not? But I got a couple of new number 1s, Chris, this week.
All right.
Here's the first of them.
Just deposit.
And I went with the
bank account.
Let me show you. I went with the oh my God, Chris Solo. How did that happen? I tell you how that happened. I hit the wrong button. I went with the J. Lee cover, and it's a book called Grimm. Who is that? Stephanie Phillips, Flaviano, Enrico something.
Benzie.
It was. I liked the art in it, even though when I read the description of it, it didn't quite grab me. it was the cover and the art inside that's like I think I read a description of this in Comic Shop News, and it didn't really grab. You know what it is? It's I'm not big on living embodiments of death. Another welcome back, Scott.
Hey,
All read is a new 3-part Superman coming out. Yeah, it's
cool.
That's what I just noticed that in this week's Comic Shop News. Yeah. All read on Superman. It's been a decade since I bought a Superman book. Wow. I watched the trailer for Samurai Rabbit, the Usagi Chronicles, and it's not Usagi Yojimbo. Yeah.
No, it's not.
It's his teenage descendant.
Yeah.
But this turned out good. I'm gonna at least get a second issue on this. Okay. And like I said, I'm not big on the living embodiment of death stuff, but she's not really that. She's a Grim Reaper. And the story is the first issue kind of grabbed me. It's funny how a lot of first issues in the last few months have just not grabbed me. They've just been kind of like, they just don't give me enough. This one gave me enough. And it starts with an accident. Someone dies. She comes. The typical, what's going on? I got to get to the hospital. No, the Grim Reaper. No, you're dead. You're really dead. And so go through that normal sort of stuff. She brings him over the river, which he calls the River Styx, and they're slowly kind of cluing you in to how this the afterlife works, where there's a series of Grim Reapers all taking people to the afterlife, to whatever happens to them next. Okay. And the interesting part of it was she's got her scythe, her Grim Reaper scythe here that she carries, but it's kind of like a lightsaber in that you can hit the off button. So which is important because she hit the off button and put it in her pocket, and then this guy pickpocketed her. She didn't know. All of a sudden, she was like, because he's trying to get back to the land of the living,
right?
And so she's there with her Grim Reaper buddy, and you find out stuff like he's upset that he's dead, but she's upset because Grim Reapers have no memory of their previous life. So she's like, I'd rather be dead than a Grim Reaper. At least I'd know who I was. So there's all this stuff going on. As she's taking him to the next life, you're meeting other Grim Reapers, and like I said, the art and the storytelling are terrific. She unknowns to her, he takes the scythe. She figures it out a page later. Meanwhile, that somehow brings him back to Earth. And also, we can't see Grim Reapers. So sort of the twist at the end was she and her Grim Reaper buddies had to go back to the Earth to get the scythe back from him, which they do. And at the end, we find out all of a sudden she can be seen. So it's like the cops are like, lady, you just can't assault people. Come with it. And she's like, what? You can see me? So that's kind of where it ended. So we're going to have to figure out but like I said, it was the art and storytelling that were really good on it. There's the number one, Chris. Go get it.
I will.
And
next Wednesday when I go on my weekly trip.
The $60 ratio variant of this was this cover without the color. And I'm like, you know what? It's much better with the color. I'll take the $4 colored version over the $60 ratio version. But that's what some people want.
Hey, you can get 20 issues of Spawn for that ratio version.
There you go. Oh, I got a new issue of Spawn, which was about as interesting as every other issue of Spawn, except for
much, huh?
I wish Chris could see this.
Is that piggyback?
Much like what happened, I think happened with.
You got a printing error. You got wavy warp.
No, we got Jack. I think they printed the 72 DPI preview. I doubt it comes through on this. But there's all sorts of JPEG jaggies on it, like it's 72 DPI and not 300 DPI. I'm like, what the heck? Spawn 329. I'm like, what the
heck? That's going to be the special error variant.
This is a high-res file. This is definitely a 72 DPI file. I'm like, how does that happen?
Well, you just don't know that we print all our covers at 72 DPI.
But I saw that. I didn't, of course, didn't notice it till I got home. And I was like, what the? Because I think it happened with an issue of The Great Gatsby that I bought recently, a couple months ago. But it's an issue of Spawn. There's a Spawn war going. Good evening.
Yeah. No, I have a question. Actually, anybody, feel free to answer this.
Okay.
At the end of Back to the Future 2, Doc is in the time machine, or Marty's in the time machine flying up above?
Yeah,
Back to the Future 2? Who's in the time machine flying up above?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I remember he's like on the road stranded by himself, I think.
So, but
It was Michael Collins.
Yes guy shows up, or FedEx guy shows up.
yes, it's a letter from Doc in the past.
Yeah.
But does Doc have that time machine with him in the past? How does Marty get the time machine back to go?
Doc has the time machine in the past, but he doesn't have a power source anymore.
So, oh wait, so he hid it buried for Marty to find? Was that what happened?
I don't know. You guys see this stuff?
I saw Back to the Future 2
I never saw the
about
third.
40 years ago, and that
I
was
would need a time machine to go back and remember what I actually liked about the.
But
Remember
that
the
sounds like
movie.
a good idea. I mean,
Yeah,
what else are
because
you
that's
gonna
what
do?
I'm about to rip that idea off. So I'm wondering if I.
You want to know how badly you're ripping it off, or how to like change it?
No. I don't care if I rip it off because nobody's gonna know. But in the story, it's like Brain Sturgeon steals the watch back from them. It's their only way to travel through time. And then he opens up a portal and pushes them through. He's like, "Good luck wherever you show up."
Yeah.
You know, now you're out of my hair. And then he's like, "I don't need this thing." He chucks it over his shoulder down the
Tit
Golden.
Goblin says the Doc had it hidden.
All right.
Doc had it hidden.
So then they end up like in Western times. Jim already ripping off Back to the Future.
Thank you, Goblin.
And then they think they're stuck there, but then somebody mines the gold miner, like the old prospector, is like, I found this crazy watch, and it's their watch from dinosaur times. It's just been there the entire time.
This is like everyone's watching this.
Oh,
This isn't a private chat.
by everyone, you mean these two guys?
No. How many people are watching right now?
7.
Seven people
Oh,
around the world.
Yeah.
Around the world.
sorry, 7 people.
I don't know if you wanted to give your ideas away.
You're giving them a look into the
Just give away
process.
ideas if you haven't seen Back to the Future 3, which I'm stealing.
He just wants to make sure he hid it in the car for Marty to find in the West in number 3. It says 62 Lefty Blues.
That shows you how long it's been since I've seen the movie.
What year did Back to the Future 2 come out, or 3, whichever one?
I don't know.
Whatever year it was, I saw it on HBO the following year, and that's the only time I've ever seen it.
I think 2 came out in 90.
90?
Sounds about right.
Wow.
I could look it up if I had like an internet in front of me.
Internet.
I'll
That's
find out.
there's.
Let's take a look here.
But yeah, 72 DPI preview version got printed on the actual cover.
I was wrong. I was way off.
What year did it come out?
Came out in 89.
89.
Way off.
Next time, get it right.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm
Get
leaving.
it right.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, because of that?
Well, I don't.
Oh,
Well,
because of that?
I don't need people eavesdropping on my genius. When I invent it like willfully,
Okay.
but not against my will.
Okay.
He's going to have to come up with another idea now.
Yeah.
Internet broke out the CB and ham radio. Google says 1989. Yep.
Yeah, we use smoke signals.
I smell smoke. There's wood. I have my windows open for the first time. So there's smoke signals going on out there because I smell wood smoke. Wood smoke. Up just got a word from Wilson. He won't be on till after 7:30. We should have Paulo here around 7.
Excuse me.
Got to hit that cough button. It came on too fast.
Ew.
But I wonder how many people even noticed that this is the 72D because it's so dark.
You know how many people noticed that, Jared?
Me?
One. It was you. Yeah.
I'm sure the production guy at Image noticed when he got his copy. He was like, "Oh man." Let's see. Who's the production guy? Ryan Kaiser and Zabrielle Kennedy. They can blame it on the intern and Monty Davis.
Blame it on the intern.
Since he's credited too. But it's still a $2.99 book, so I'm still buying it.
What number is it?
Number, what is that, 329?
No thanks.
It's not a number one, 329. 5-second delay on Scott. You can use this video in a future court date.
Yeah, we'll just save the video in the past and bring it up later.
Todd was late on his love check to the production guy.
He had the Canadian spelling of check as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Love checks. Did you get a love check when you worked at Image, Chris?
I don't know what that means.
Oh, you don't know what that means?
And more
No.
importantly, did it bounce?
That was when the kayfabe guys were reading the court transcripts to the McFarlane Neil Gaiman suit, the depositions and stuff.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I couldn't hang in there for that entire reading.
I listened to a lot of it. I don't know if I got to I think got to the last one, but at one point they were asking because Neil Gaiman kept asking for a contract to get his royalties right, but there was no contract because Todd McFarlane just kept sending him love checks. So instead of getting a royalty check, he'd get a love check.
That was what he officially like. Did it say that on the check?
That's what Todd McFarlane called them to Neil Gaiman. And Neil Gaiman kept going, I think we need some of this stuff in writing.
Yeah, he's like, I think I want my alimony instead. Thank you.
I dropped all the songs after King Spawn. After I get to 20, I will rethink it. Then I'm just buying the original Spawn just because it's hanging in there at $3, so I'm gonna buy it. That's the only reason. Now is it check or check? Depends if you're in St. John or not.
Here in Prague, it's spelled with a Z.
Let's see, what else did I get this one? Want to see the other number one I got this week, Chris? I know you love number ones.
Oh man,
I got the Jenny Frison cover of 8 Billion Genies.
how much did that cost?
$4.
I'll give you 8 if you send it to me right now.
No way. No, my brother, you must get your own. Jenny Frison. The
That's a lot
inside
of
art is written by Charles Sewell. Ryan Brown does the art. I wasn't particularly fond of the art inside, but the storytelling was good, and the story was fine. The art's a little ugly, but that's kind of what it's going for, because these are not pretty people. They're just regular old people.
It's not Julie Doucette ugly.
No. You know, I just looked up on my shelf and saw I had a Julie Doucette collected edition of something, and I went, I don't remember reading that.
She won some kind of award at Angoulême this year.
Ah.
And I'm thinking, I don't live in the same universe that the rest of these people do.
But the concept behind this is is called 8 Billion Genies, because all of a sudden one day, in an instant, everybody on Earth gets their own genie, and they're allowed to make one wish. And then the genie disappears.
That's a nightmare waiting to happen.
Exactly. And so nightmares start happening. And that's what happens in this. But and also it's funny because it gives you a running tally of the population and how many genies there are. Because after you make your wish, the genie goes away. But sometimes it says, like the first 8 minutes, 7,999,000,000 people, 7,998,000,000 genies. And then it goes down. And I think there's another update somewhere. And as you can, let me show you this. After people start making their wishes, you got a guy in a robot suit, a guy riding a T-Rex, a giant monster truck, people flying in spaceships. That guy's a giant. There are people just flying. So
everybody's like 10 years old, right?
Except for now, it also takes this. It takes place. It starts out in a bar, so all the characters that we know are in a bar. Mm-hmm. There's the band. There's the bartender. There's a couple of Chinese tourists, and there's a kid picking up his drunk dad. But it's like the bartender immediately makes a wish that's just such a plot-related wish. Mm-hmm. Here's the bartender. And the wish he makes is, I wish that no wish made outside this bar can affect this bar or anyone or anything inside it. So the bar becomes a safe haven from all this wishery. And I'm like, that is such a plot wish. It's like, when they were coming up with a plot for this, they said, we need a place, we need a home base where these wishes won't have any effect. So they made the bartender. It's like, that was the wish they wrote to make the story work.
So you really changed the story from 8 billion genies to 8 genies.
It's like no one inside that bar is affected by any wishes or genies. So it's kind of like, you know what? That's the.
So you're telling me, even though it's a #1, I shouldn't buy it?
No, it's good. I liked it.
Oh, all right.
I'm just saying that particular thing was funny. That took me out of the story.
Kind of sounds like you're trashing it
because it's such a story thing. And it's like when you're coming up with the plot of this story, that's your key element to make the story work. And it's like it's not a wish that anyone's going to think up in an instant like this guy did.
It's the out that you wrote into the story, kind of like the writers of Doctor Who did.
Yeah. But it was good. This is definitely going to get a second issue.
Maybe this isn't the first time this guy's dealt with genies.
Could be. If that reveals itself in the story, I'll let you know. But like I said, this is getting a second issue too. Both of my first issues are getting second issues. And this is, come back next month to experience the first 8 hours. But as you can see, at the end of it, the bar is still standing while there's all sorts of stuff happening around it.
Do any of the people in the story, are any of them aware that other people are getting wishes?
Oh, yeah. Everybody knows it.
Why
At least the people in the bar do.
To have the last wish.
What was that?
Why aren't people just waiting to have the last wish?
Maybe they are. I mean, this is everybody on Earth gets one, so.
Right. Like, I'm waiting for all you other guys to screw everything up before I have to fix it. You know?
I wish the world would go back to the way it was before everybody made their wishes.
And then the character nobody likes said, I wish all my friends were back.
But I think it's the same team that did Curse Words. Which I remember reading the first issue or two of and liking it, but I didn't stick with it. I don't remember why. It could have just been that there was It didn't fit my budget at the time.
Not enough curse words. Or anything?
Not enough curse words. But now Curse Words has a 760-page hardcover omnibus collecting all of it. So if you want to read Curse Words,
I just make my own.
there's a 750 plus page omnibus coming out. So what did you get besides Usagi? I forget now.
I got a couple issues of a very obscure 90s indie title. It's called Wandering Star.
Okay, what's that about?
Oh, boy. You would have to ask me that, wouldn't you? It's been a long time since I read it. It basically is a very young adult girl, probably in her early 20s. Science fiction story.
So it's one of those things where you remember liking it, but not.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I remember liking it, but I have to go back and reread it to remember 90% of it.
That's why I always say, if nowadays, if my opinion is over 10 years old, it's expired.
Right.
Because it's like I can remember my opinion on things, but not the things themselves. So it's kind of like I remember not liking it, but I don't remember it. So do I really not like it anymore? I don't know.
You know, it's funny. I probably remember the reasons I don't like things more so than the reasons I like things.
But you don't remember the things. That's just it. I can remember sometimes saying I didn't like that because, but I don't really remember the thing itself.
Well, I remember not liking Highlander 2, and boy, I still remember why.
Yeah, but you probably don't remember Highlander 2. You can't think of many scenes to it. You can think of, you can.
It's that bad.
It was that bad. See, I saw Highlander 2 and didn't like it and don't remember it.
You're fortunate.
It was just another bad sequel.
You're fortunate that you don't remember it.
Mm-hmm. Anything else besides those two?
Did I get anything else? Not that I remember. Although I think there may be one other book in there, but I can't remember what it is. I saw a list of the free comic book day titles.
Yeah.
And I wasn't impressed by it. But then evidently the list I saw must not have been complete because I saw some of the free comic book day things that both Damien and Terrence picked up. And I don't remember seeing those. I would have got those.
Yeah, rarely does the indie stuff show up on lists or in the comic shops.
Yeah, I would have got the Inkle book that came out.
Which one?
The Inkle book that came out from Humanoids.
Oh, okay. The Inkle.
There's a new Inkle series that's coming out later that Mark Waid is doing.
Didn't they do a second Inkle series after the Mobius stuff?
Hmm? Yeah.
I've never read any of that. It's the same writer. Who wrote? Was that Jodorowsky?
Yeah, Jodorowsky.
I've never read any.
I think Ladron did the art.
Oh, okay.
So it's very Mobiesque art.
Right. Landron was that guy who did Cable too in the 90s.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember
I didn't read Cable. So.
Neither did I. I was just at Marvel at the time and used to see it. So, and it was very sort of Mobius meets Kirby. Very different than any of the
I don't remember him working for Marvel, but then again, that wasn't what I was interested in.
I think Landron was his name, though, as Chris remembers, too.
Ladron.
Ladron?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think he did some Elephant Men stuff, too.
Ah, all right.
Yeah, he did. I remember that.
I have never seen a physical copy of Elephant Man.
I have.
I've looked at some digital.
Not very often, but I have.
Yeah. I've never seen an actual copy of it.
They exist.
Maybe you would if you knew how comic book shops work.
Maybe.
Ask your comic shop if they have a collection.
They'd order it for me. That's how a comic shop works. I was just discussing at the beginning of the class of the show how we always discuss how we can how the industry could get comic books into more people's hands.
Right.
And I'm like, they're so hamstrung because even people who I know who are comic book fans don't know how to get comic. Like one of my friends IM'd me today and was like, can you check with your comic shop and see if they have a copy of the collected edition of, I think he said Perez and Jeff Johns. I think it's a Legion of Superheroes thing, 3 Legions or something like that. And I'm like, and I immediately said, no, they won't have it. And I immediately thought, no, they won't have it. I'm like, I'll check, but I know they won't have it. And then as we were discussing it, it turns out it's an out of print one that cost $100. And I'm like, he's like, but it's like, he said something like the first printing goes for $100, but I'll take a third printing. I'm like, there's not a third printing. This is another way that comic book is like collected editions. It doesn't matter what printing. It just matters if it's in print or it's out of print. No one's paying extra for a first edition of a collected edition in general, unless it's out of print.
For artist editions, they are.
Well, no, only if they're out of print.
Right.
It's like because most people who are buying collected editions are not buying them for collectability. They're buying them to read.
Right.
So unlike comics, which there's a lot of people collecting them. So it's kind of like if you're buying a collected edition and there's a $10 third printing and a $100 first printing, that $100 first printing is never going to sell.
Right.
Which is why as long as something's in print, nobody really cares. Nobody is selling the third printing of Watchmen for any more than they are the 10th printing.
Unless there's some kind of a print error or something like that.
Yeah, there could be some reason it happens, of course, but generally not.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're not. That's what Chris was arguing about, just to be argumentative over there.
Yeah, I'm not being a random jackass. I'm being a very measured jackass.
When I said, comic you can't just walk into a random comic shop and ask them for a random collected edition, expect them to have it.
You can.
You can, but you'll be disappointed. This is the very rare comic shop that has a huge backstock of collected editions.
There's a few, but there's not many.
Yeah, there's not many. Midtown Comics.
Oh, Mile High's got Midtown beat all to pieces in their category.
They got the Koch warehouse. I've never been there, but I've heard tell of it.
Have you seen any videos on YouTube where people take a tour of the warehouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could spend some money there.
Yeah. In Brooklyn.
You used to mail order stuff from them back when they had ads in CBG back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must be where I know the name from, too. Because I knew the name before I started seeing the YouTube videos. And I was like, where do I know that name
House of Wonder.
By appointment only.
Yep.
I just wonder where it is in Brooklyn. Because my friend Ed used to live in Brooklyn and Carroll Gardens next to this like warehouse district. And it was so strange. We'd walk through there sometimes late at night.
Right.
And it's there's nobody there because it's all warehouses that there's no one there at night. So it's weird to walk through Brooklyn.
So you're walking into a Batman story, basically.
Yes. Yeah. It's weird walking through Brooklyn and seeing no people. It's just like, whoa.
That's something we always notice when we go to Heroes Con in Charlotte is the downtown districts where all the banks and the hotels are. After 5 p.m. on a Friday, that's a ghost town.
Yeah.
Everything is on the periphery.
Right. Midtown Manhattan.
The Twilight Zone?
Midtown Manhattan at night can be a little weird sometimes because there's always people around. A lot of the buildings are closed,
right?
Because that's all. Midtown is all the where everybody works.
Yeah, I've only been there once, and that's when Mike Cluda took us out to that Chinese restaurant at 3 in the morning. It's like really, really, really good food. It's like
The
3 in the morning.
locals know where the good
We
stuff
gotta get one of these back home, man.
is. Mile High Comics just bought a multi-generational family collection started in the 40s for $100,000. Had pictures of it all being packed. That just made me realize I haven't got my Mile High newsletter in a while. I'm gonna have to see if I fell off their list or something.
That's not nice.
Yeah, because usually I get an email every week from Mile
Right.
High. I haven't seen it in a little while. I just realized I didn't think about that till right then. Usually it's impossible to get off mailing lists. Sometimes you fall off the ones you want to be on.
I had a subscription to a local newspaper years ago. I thought it was going to have to take an act of Congress to get off their mailing list.
Mile High. Let's see what else I got here this week. Here's one that another hello for Scott. Good evening.
Hello, Terrence.
Comic Crack. Here's a series I'm glad is over. It's only 4 issues. Lady Mechanica, The Monster of the Ministry of Hell.
That's a good title.
First Lady Mechanica series I've ever bought. The covers are always nice, and they always give you a pin-up of the cover in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other side has got a pin-up of another cover, but I'd have to rip it out to see. But the story just wasn't that interesting. And this one was just especially tough because it was about an evil orphanage. It was a flashback to Lady Mechanica's origin when she was trapped in an evil orphanage. And it was an evil orphanage. Though this last issue, we found out it wasn't as evil as we thought it was. So that was a little weird, too.
So it was semi-evil.
But it just... I liked the first issue, I think, best of all of them. Maybe because I wanted to read a Lady Mechanica series, having never read one, yet always admiring the covers.
So if you like the cover and it's like not so great interior art, not so great story, it's a gold key book.
Yep. But it's one of those I collect digital versions of the covers. That seems to be the easiest way to do it.
I had heard something that Gold Key is going to be reincarnated.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Who owned? I wonder who owns it, because they still own like Torak and whoever those guys were that Valiant licensed from
Torak,
in the 90s.
Solar.
So whoever Gold Key is, I think still owns those.
I have no idea. Not sure. Magnus Robot Fighter, I think, was one of them.
There was like 3 or 4 of them from the 90s that the version of Valiant in the 2000s didn't publish because they didn't bother to relicense them.
I do not know.
A multi-generational family collection started in the 40s. Wow. Seems like $100,000 is cheap for that.
That's what I'm going to say. They may be.
I guess it all depends on what they have and what condition it's in.
That's true, and probably how hard they wanted to get rid of it too.
There was an angry collector 2 Wednesdays ago at my comic shop, which I was at my comic shop at probably about 4:30 2 Wednesdays ago. Busy time in the comic shop, it being Wednesday, and it's a small comic shop too. It's only open, I think, 3 or 4 days a week.
Right.
It's like the guy who runs it. It's his sideline, and the other guy who works there is a retired cop, so it's his sideline too. So they're, like I said, they're only there 3 or 4 days a week. So this guy comes in. There's already 4 or 5 people in the shop getting their books, and 4 or 5 people in that shop is a lot.
Right.
And so this other guy comes in with his books looking to sell them. He's like, yeah, it's time I sold my books. And John's working. He's like, this isn't a good day, for coming in. And I was like, you're only open 3 days a week, and storms out. And John's like, I would have told him to come back on Thursday. It's a much better day for looking at books. But I was like, but he had his books in plastic shopping bags from a grocery store, right. Not bagged and boarded, so they're all
exactly Mylar, right?
And I was just like, he obviously doesn't care about condition, so. Right. I was like, if you're,
of course, everybody thinks what they have is worth a lot more than it actually is.
Right. Like, those are not going to be in mint condition.
Like they're all copies of Spawn, Jared.
Like my friend, right before COVID hit, Chris, Jerry Kalinowski gave me a bunch of his books. Like 1,000 of them. He's like, you want? He's like, I'm moving. You want these? I'm like, not really. He's like, take them. Otherwise, I got to throw them out. I'm like, I'll stick them in the garage. And
there are any number ones in there?
There might be. But none of them were. I mean, there are books that he worked at Marvel with us, and so there are comps that he had gotten over the years. But clearly, he had moved them, read once and packed away exactly, and then moved in plastic bags. But clearly, they had been books he had for years and moved around and shifted and moved with them and put them. They're in random. Xerox paper boxes, none of them bagged and boarded. So it's like, they're 8 O's at best, the whole lot of them. I'm like, you know what? There's going to be nothing valuable in here.
You've got 2 copies of Street Poet Ray in there, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Street Poet Ray. Hey, remember, the guy who brought Street Poet Ray to Marvel brought Akira, too.
1 out of 2 ain't bad.
1 out of 2 ain't bad. So, Chris, how many pages do you have to get? How many pages do you have done? Have you broken 100 yet?
Yeah, I'm on 123 right now.
Ooh, he's smoking. Last I knew, you were on 90. I think that was Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
So you got a lot done in the last few days.
A couple of good days. Some easy pages, all in a row.
That's good.
So he's not doing like one of those Jeff Darrow crowd scenes, huh?
Oh no.
Let me ask you this: Does Chris the colorist complain about Chris the cartoonist sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah.
Like, why did that idiot put so much stuff here?
It's more often it's this idiot forgot to draw this.
He said, I'll leave it for the colorist.
He drew the top part of this thing. He never drew the bottom part of this thing.
The inker will fix it, he said. Has to have the flexi disc still to be worth big bucks. Got to have that tattoos in there. You don't have the tattoos, I'm not interested in the comic. Temporary tattoos. Yeah, I got that. I bought a facsimile issue last month, I think it was, of that. What's Spider-Man 241, the one with the tattoos in it, the first Hobgoblin?
All right.
I bought that, and I bought a facsimile edition of Spectacular Spider-Man #1. Pure nostalgia purchases. I was like, it's like I've had these comics and gotten and sold them.
Uh-huh.
And don't really want them. But for the pure nostalgia of reading them one more time, I got the facsimile editions.
It's like, if you ever had that situation where you're going through a dollar bin or something, you see a book that you already have.
Yeah.
But it's so good, it doesn't deserve to be in that box.
I never go through dollar bins, but if I did, I would do that. Because I've heard like Tim is always saying, I have got to give this one a good home. I had to take
I got to buy this one, man. Can't let this book go for just $1? Come on.
This is a great book. Though, which was it? It was the must be 20 years old now. I have 2 copies of it just because my LCS owner gave me one. Like, remember this one? This one was good. I'm like, sure, I'll have a second copy. The I think it was an issue of Action Comics, and it was the sort of the Superman response to the Authority. I think they have those characters all now in regular continuity. I forget their names.
Was it the Elite?
The Elite, yes. And it was actually a good Superman story. I forget who did it now. Joe Kelly wrote it, maybe?
I think it was Joe Kelly.
Can't remember who the artist was. But he's like, oh, remember this one here? You want a free copy? I was like, sure. But I have 2 copies of that just because my LCS owner gave me a free copy. He also gave me a free copy of Skate Man that day. I assume because he bought a collection with a lot of them in it.
Did you give it back?
No. I always have to fight the urge to rescue books from the dollar bins. Yes.
Yeah. I struggle with that sometimes. Like, you don't deserve this book for $1. Come on. My local shop moved because they were doing construction. So the city actually gave them money to move to a different location and then across the town.
Oh, wow.
And now they're right down the store from a guitar store they like. And they're also right down the store from like the best burger joint in the entire town.
Are you saying you go more often?
Well, I'm saying from now on, when I go over there, I'm going to be spending more money on less things that are comics. Yeah.
Burgers and guitars.
Yeah, don't get hooked on either one. It's not good.
I'm already hooked on art supplies. I spend all my money on that.
Yeah, that's true too.
Let's see. What else did I get? Time Before Time, number 12.
How do you know it's before time if it's already?
They tell me it is. This is a done-in-one with a guest artist, and the guest artist is P.J. Holden, who is the guy who's been drawing that book I've been reading. There's Paulo. How are you doing?
Hello.
What's that book I've been reading? The Lion and the Eagle. By Garth Ennis has been writing. It's a war book, but P.J. Holden's doing a done-in-one issue of this. And it was a really good story, but like this story is all about time travel and these 2 criminal syndicates that run time travel. And they're in 2 different time periods. And so the first issue, our story opened with this guy who worked, he low level. He actually ran the time machines. And the way it works is once you're in with them, they never let you out. So he was trying to figure out a way out. And he was planning on stealing this time machine so he could escape to the past and escape all these gangster time travel people, the syndicate. But before he could put his plan in motion, this woman who was an FBI agent hijacked his time machine so she could escape to the past. In this story, we revisit her partner who was investigating her disappearance. And it's a good story, really emotional. He's a young father. He's an FBI agent, and it's in the future even. What's the year of this one? Because 2137 he lives in. And what happens as he's investigating his partner's disappearance, and his boss kind of says, you're too close to it, and brushes it all under the table when his boss starts an investigation. So that, of course, sets this guy off. So he wants to find it more until eventually in one of the, you learn, like I said, there's some real gangster stuff going on in this, where one of the guys from the syndicate brings the FBI agent into a room, and there's this like teenager in the room. And he's like, yeah, this is your son from the future. We can get to your son anytime. And he's like, So it's a story about him investigating, running running foul of the syndicate, and done in one. Good stuff. It's not a first issue, Chris, but it's a done in one. But a good issue.
It's not. Wait, how is it done in one if it's not number one?
I tell you, number ones aren't done in one. I was at my downtown comic shop yesterday, and on the way home, bumped into the 2 surviving members of ZZ Top visiting the record store. Most random comic shop occurrence adventure I've ever had. Wow.
Technically, one of the members of ZZ Top that was in the band before they released their very first album is still alive.
So there's 3 surviving ZZ Top members?
There's 2 that people know about, and there's one that nobody ever heard of before because he had left the band before they even recorded their first album.
He's the Pete Best of ZZ Top.
Even more obscure, way more obscure than Pete.
Yeah, because people know who Pete Best is.
Right.
After all, I just came up with his name, and I don't know that much about the Beatles.
I don't know if I've asked you this trivia question or not, but which major band has survived the longest from their inception with no member changes whatsoever?
Rolling Stone.
Not even close. They didn't even make it 10 years.
I have no idea.
Not a
Say
clue.
Pink Floyd, Death.
U2, or not U2. ZZ Top
Genesis.
would have been a good guess until Dusty Hill died.
Yeah. I'm trying, like, The Who, Death.
Genesis. They never changed anybody.
Right.
Roxette?
Roxette.
Rock's
Yeah.
not active anymore.
No, because she died.
The answer is U2.
You too?
You too?
That's ZZ Top was Back to the Future. Links up today's show because ZZ Top was in Back to the Future.
There you go.
Quit ruining Smitty's ideas by talking about them. How are you doing tonight, Paulo?
I just got off work and taking out the Perez comics. At least I reread Sex and Violence.
Okay. How was it? I've never read that one, I don't think.
It's pretty basic. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something that you can see was done in the early 90s.
Like Back to the Future 3.
Trying to pick up on that zeitgeist of the early 90s, but it didn't really.
It kind of did. The thing is,
I think it did by osmosis.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it did. I think it designed. I think it really, from what I remember of it, and I don't remember it. It was really one of those things because it was creator owned too.
Yeah.
And who wrote it?
Peter David.
Peter David. I think that it was one of those things that they were really trying to make a hit with. Like they're kind of like, oh, if we hit on this, it's the early 90s, it's big, it can be big, we can be rich kind of thing.
Was that the one that George Perez drew?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I remember ads for that.
I remember looking at a little, like I said, any opinion I have that's over 10 years old is expired. So I really remember what I thought about it more than what it was. So, but I thought it was something that was trying to sort of, glom on to the zeitgeist of the early 90s and be a hit. And it just really wasn't.
One of my favorite things that George Perez ever did was we were talking about the McFarlane Gaiman lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
McFarlane challenged Peter David to a public debate.
Oh, yeah.
And after it was over, George Perez drew a cartoon of what he thought had happened, which is basically the Hulk knocks Spawn through, 5 buildings into another room.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny.
I remember all that time, all that early 90s debates and CBC.
Yeah.
That debate's on YouTube.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Comic Crack said U2 too.
Yeah.
Was it Peter David?
Paulo?
No, I just reread Sex and Violence, and that was it.
Okay. I read because I got this sent to me by accident, I reread Chance in Hell by Gilbert Hernandez. Good stuff, really dark. I was open to one of the really dark pages. We don't want to spoil anything, but this is one of his original graphic novels. Came out in 2007. I was supposed to be sent one of the Luba books, but I got it off of eBay, I think, and the used bookstore sent me the wrong book. It was only $5 shipping included. So I'm like, there's no sense in sending it back. So I ordered from another place the Luba book I wanted. But yeah, even though I already have this on my shelf, but I haven't read it in 15 years. So it was a good reread. Good stuff. How much Love and Rockets have you yet read, Paulo?
None yet.
No, you and Chris have not read any Love and Rockets. How about you, Scott?
A little bit, not a whole lot.
Not much Love and Rockets reading
Probably
here.
No,
I'd say 7 or 8 issues worth, roughly. I started with the early stuff too. So
the next time I go to the other comic shop in Lisbon, I'm gonna see if they have a trade of anything.
Yeah. And like stuff like Gilbert put out a series of graphic novels. You can just read them on their own too. Like this one, it doesn't say it explicitly in this one, but I think, but it said it in later ones. What he would do was Fritz. Where is she? And Luba, is really about 3 sisters, and one of the sisters, the red-haired one there, is a B movie actress in Mexico. His stories all take place in a fictional Mexico town called Palomar, and he started making graphic novel adaptations of the movies she was in, in his Palomar stories. So some of them are just really weird, and she's not even always the star. Like in this one, like I said, this one doesn't explicitly say it's that, because I think this may have been one of the first ones. But there she is, right there with the big boobs, and she plays a prostitute, and she's a prostitute in this. But it's obviously the character Fritz, so this must be one of the movies she was in. Even though, but really dark story about this little girl who grows up bad and not a lot of good stuff happens to her. I guess she's only got a chance in hell.
Speaking of that, you remember a few weeks back that, who was it? I think it was on one of the Sunday chats that LaRosse and Damien were doing. They were reviewing Stray Bullets.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
It made me realize I do not want to read it.
Oh, Stray Bullets is terrific.
Yeah, but it was just it's like depressing, It's like
it really isn't depressing. It's very joyous, but describing it is depressing. Because I would describe Stray Bullets as
it was just too much crime.
It's definitely a crime comic, but often it's like some random person decides to take a little walk on the wild side and dip their toe into the world of crime, and just things go bad. But it is a terrific book.
It made me realize it's like there's so many other things I want to read instead. So.
I love that. It's definitely worth a read. But if you don't want to read a crime comic, no one should force you to.
That would be a crime.
That would be a crime. Have you read Stray Bullets, Paulo?
I have the first trade paperback, which I bought 15 years ago. And it's not that I didn't like it, but it never occurred to me to buy another one.
I was late to Stray Bullets too. I think the first issue of Stray Bullets I picked up was like issue 8 or 9, and I went, eh. Then I picked up another issue around maybe 12 and was like, eh. Then I picked up an issue around 15 and bought it all ever since. It just gets better and better. And then when you go back and read the earlier ones, they get better too. It's funny because once the characters get even more fleshed out, and he tells the story out of order at times. So you go back and read and go, this is what happened there.
So that really reminds me of Breaking Bad, actually.
Breaking Bad. Well, I could see the
Again,
comparison.
Yeah.
I could see the comparison.
And things went wrong. Yeah. Very wrong.
It links up today. Oh, that's where we read that one. ZZ Top, Back to the Future 3.
It came back again.
Let's see. Another comic that's just chugging along is Nocterra issue 10. This is just a solid, professionally done indie comic. That's how I describe it. Because it's by Scott Snyder, Tony S. Daniel, Marcelo Maiolo, Maiolo, Maiolo.
Maiolo.
Milo?
Maiolo.
No, not
Maiolo.
No. M-A-I.
M-A-I.
M-A-I-O-L-O.
M-A-I-O-L-O.
Maiolo.
Maiolo. Marcelo Maiolo. I mean, Scott Snyder and Tony S. Daniels have been working on Batman, and they're a top DC Comics team. So they make very professional comics, and this one is a very professional comic. It's not what I'm used to in indie comics kind of thing. It's just a little different. It's good. It's a solid B. But the story just keeps chugging along at a monthly pace. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing especially great about it. But I'm buying it and enjoy it. So what the heck? Not all comics can be Usagi Yojimbo now, can they?
I saw a post by Walt Simonson the other day praising.
Yeah, so did I, praising Usagi. Saying how much he enjoys it.
We gotta make a seat for Walt at the table we all sit at for the Usagi Yojimbo fan club.
That has been, I think, the one comic on his pull list all these years.
Yeah.
Usagi. And I still haven't bought that Hate Collected Edition. I've had the Hate Collected Edition.
Mm-hmm.
It's about $80. I think that it's been a lot more than that. It went out of print, it went back. It's been on my pull list for maybe 2 years now. And every time I'm about to buy it, something goes wrong with my computer. Matter of fact, last year I was about to buy it, and I had to buy a whole new computer. And then this year I was just about to buy it, and my hard drive went. So I had to buy a backup hard drive. And I was like, I never seem to be able to get that one. I have all the issues, so it's not like, but it's oversized hardcover box set.
I've never read any of those.
Oh, Hate is.
I know about it. Just never read. I've actually probably read more interviews about it.
It's
material itself.
One of my like I said, I've used this quote before. Can't remember even who said it. One of my friends said, "The great American novel of the late 20th century was written by Peter Bagge, and it's called Hate." And it really is that good, especially if from beginning to end, it's the story of a man's life, because people always when it was sort of the official comic of grunge in the early 90s. Those are the issues everybody likes, as Peter Bagge refers to it, back when Hate was cool. But Buddy Bradley grew up. He eventually grew up, had some kids, started a business. He was still nutty a little bit. Well, he often became he was trying to be sane. And people around him were nutty, but it's just from beginning to end. If you read it from beginning from Hate #1 to Buddy Buys a Dump, it's just this amazing story of a person's life. Have to chime in with my obligatory Hate is an amazing series. It really is special. I mean, And the early 90s, the cool issues are special in and of themselves. In that it really was sort of, it captured the zeitgeist of the time like Saxon Violence doesn't. But then it changed over the years. That's the amazing part. Most amazing part of Hate was how it changed over the years.
Kind of like Funky Winkerbean in that regard.
I have not read enough of Funky Winkerbean to know.
Gotcha.
Yes, if you read Neat Stuff before, that's even better. Yeah, the Neat Stuff. There's a collected edition of the Neat stuff called The Bradleys, which is because right, that only adds to it. The Bradleys is about his family living in New Jersey. So Buddy Bradley was in high school. His younger sister and younger brother and mother and father all living in the suburbs of New Jersey. And that is just dysfunctional New Jersey family stuff. And then the first issue of Hate, Buddy graduates high school, moves out to Seattle. And so that's where Hate starts, is Buddy being out of high school and living in Seattle. And eventually he moves back to New Jersey later on in the series. But just like the early, when Hate was cool stuff, is just terrific. And the later stuff is just amazing. Listen, I actually compare it to John Updike's Rabbit trilogy, if you've ever read that. Rabbit Run, Rabbit Redo, and Rabbit is Rich. One was written in the early 60s, one in the early 70s, and one in the early 80s. It's a story of a man's life. I compare Hate to that kind of thing. Of course, it's completely and utterly different.
You just jogged my memory about something that grabbed me nuts, so I'll look it up. There was a novelist, and I can't remember the guy's name. It saved my life now. But he wrote a series of very popular novels, probably back in the...
Stephen King.
No, ranging probably, I'd say, from the very late 60s up through maybe the early 80s. Was it Tim Robbins?
Isn't he an actor?
Well, yeah, there's probably that too. But a friend of mine read all those, and she liked them. And I don't know why, but that just tripped a circuit in my brain. I'm going to have to look that up. It's going to drive me crazy.
And one of the ways I compare the Rabbit trilogy with Hate is it's almost like they have to be done over time. It's like it took him 20 years to do Hate, to do all of 25 years maybe.
Right.
And the fact that it took him so much time to do it, and he kind of grew with the character, I think is almost essential to telling to the story. That became essential to the story he was telling. Same with John Updike and Rabbit, being that he wrote the books 10 years apart. I think added to the books. If he had tried to write all three of those books a year apart, they would have been different.
I wonder if you have Watership Down first.
But they also have, speaking of the Bradleys collected edition, they have a Neat Stuff box set, which is all the stuff, all the Peter Bagge stuff from before Hate, which the Bradleys collected edition is from. You get for like $35 now. $35. It's they're magazine sized, 2 hardcover editions and a box set. I think they cover about 15 magazines or so. And it's amazing how it's like Hate hasn't dropped in price, but Neat Stuff dropped in price. Yeah. Hell, I feel I grew with the character. Exactly. We grew old with Buddy Bradley. We did. Buddy Bradley. You guys have got to get on reading Hate. That's one of my favorite. Have you ever read any of that, Chris?
Nope.
Jeez, we have to make a reading list for Chris once he stops coloring.
Yeah, put it in my hand.
How big is your pile of stuff you're never going to read?
It's like a giant double bookcase filled with stuff. And that's just the physical stuff.
Ah.
Like, I mean, it's not like hate's on the pile metaphorically or hypothetically.
Right.
Well, not lit. Was the opposite of literal?
Figurative.
Figuratively.
Or as young kids say, the opposite of literal is literal.
Yeah.
Well,
the dictionary says that now.
My list of stuff to get around to reading, it probably will have its own zip code by now.
See, I don't even have a list of stuff to get around to reading, I don't think.
I do, but I don't worry about it anymore.
I actually read a couple novels the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But the novels I read are almost random in that Amazon Prime lets me have one new novel a month. So I've been downloading those for years.
Yeah, it's funny. I look at those because I have Amazon Prime too, and very rarely do they have any free novels that I'm interested in.
I find one because they give you a list of about 8 of them, and I pick the one I like the most, and I just hit download. I'm like, you know what? They're giving it to me for free. I'm going to take. Maybe someday I'll read it. And
see, yeah, if it doesn't grab me, I was like, no.
So I'm like, I'll take that. Well, I just pick the like thriller,
right?
Or sometimes there's a historical thing on there. And I'm like, if I read it, I read it. If I don't, I don't. But at least I'm not going to leave it there. I'm not going to not take it. That's just silly. I paid for it. I'm going to take it with my monthly or yearly fee. But like when I started commuting, I read some. When I'm in the city, I'll read on the train. So that's where I read a bunch of stuff. But it's like I'm like, oh, what's this one? I actually started. I get putting a little review on Goodreads about them because after you finish the novel and reading in the Kindle, it like connects you to Goodreads, which Amazon also. And I started writing like a short 100-word review just so I'd remember I read it. Because otherwise I'd be, what was that one about? I don't know. I picked up a collection of Scud the Disposable Assassin yesterday. Missed it in the 90s, so got it now. And I always wanted to check that one out, but I never did.
Yeah, me too.
Quite well.
Yeah, so it's either start buying Love and Rockets or get the Scud the Disposable Assassin.
Scud's going to be easier to find.
Mm-hmm.
Although neither one of those, the early stuff, is going to be easy to find. It's going to be fairly obscure. But
Scud the Disposable.
Scud's going to be cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot. I mean, these Love and Rockets I got were cheap. There's a lot of different printings of the Love and Rockets.
If you want to go back and find first printings of the Tick now, they are.
Oh no, I'm not talking the original comics Love and Rockets. I'm talking the collected editions.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you're not going to find the original comics for cheap. But the Love and Rockets comics I think they're one of those things that they don't really show up in back issue bins. Because most of them are magazine sized.
Right.
And I think most Love and Rockets fans don't get rid of their issues if they bought them.
And probably the people that are looking for that in back issue bins will probably hoover it up as soon as they see it on sale.
Right. They wouldn't last long.
Right.
And they probably weren't overprinted either.
Here's a question for us. So when the whichever the two brothers, when they were doing the lady wrestler stuff.
That's Jaime.
Okay, Jaime. Did he also do any luchador stuff along with that? I think so. What's luchador is? Okay.
What's luchador again?
Mexican superhero wrestlers.
Yeah, I think they're all they're all mixed in there, aren't they? I think so. Because Jaime loves that stuff.
The reason I asked is because I was watching an El Santo movie the other day. It was really funny. They just came out with a box set. That is like some of the most popular pop fiction stuff ever came out of Mexico anywhere.
Oh yeah, Jaime does a story, I forget the name of it, in Love and Rockets, of female superhero wrestlers.
I was just curious if you ever tied it into
There were literal
Real
superheroes
world,
in Volume 3, I
stories
think
as
it
well.
was.
I'm just curious.
Love and Rockets is hard to get locally because everyone loves it too much to sell. Yeah. Goblins only found a few.
Right.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can definitely understand that because there are some series that people just don't get rid of. Like people, Comic Crack always and others say those Marvel Mobius graphic novels are hard to find because no one sells them. You very rarely see Love and Rockets.
You would find them; they're not cheap anymore.
Right.
Or you can buy them in French. They keep getting reprinted.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if everything that Mobius has ever done is still in print, but even if it isn't, it's about 95%.
It's not even close to being in print.
Yeah,
not over there. That I think I can buy most of the stuff.
There are a couple of factors that play into that I don't want to talk about right now. I'll tell you about it later.
Whoa, Nelly was in the dollar bin. That's the female wrestling book. Great art. Yeah, that's the Jaime one. That's also comic book size. So that might end up in some bins because, like I said, it's not a magazine size one. And that matters, of course, as we all know, for back issue bins.
That drives me crazy. I like bigger books.
Me too. That's why I'm
get in you fine. Give it to me. Yeah, you know.
That's why I'm tracking down these because I want the bigger ones. Oh man, I really got to watch that. Used book. It didn't feel that bad when I took. It must be the humidity here today is making it even stickier. The one I washed feels fine. That one, it must have been when I got it on like Wednesday. It was drier out, so I just picked it up and put it on the shelf. And now I'm handling it, going, ooh. The humidity made it slimier. It activated the slime on the used book.
I noticed in my local Barnes and Noble in the summer there when it's really humid, a lot of the paperback covers will actually start to curl.
Yeah, I could see that happening. No doubt about it. My last book of the week is Crossover, issue number 13.
Okay.
It's getting extremely meta now because the writer of the book, the concept of this book, of course, is all the superheroes universes cross over into our universe. Rub the slime gimmick first cover issue. Slime.
They should have done that for Plasm.
So yeah. So it's like this just takes place in our regular world. Then all of a sudden all these superheroes show up. And they end up in Denver behind a dome, like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Spawn.
Yeah.
Everybody ends up here, and they're trying to figure out what's happening. And
so they're in the Secret Wars world because Denver got moved to the Secret Wars world.
Could be. Maybe that's why he picked Denver. But
and everybody there was normal until Dr. Doom gave Titania and Volcano their powers.
Well, Donny Cates is the writer of this one. And he showed up 2 issues ago because people are trying to figure out what's going on. And they're like, and the comic book, like Negan's in this killing, because Negan found out he was a comic book character and that these writers were the reason Negan's life is miserable is because of comic book writers. So it turns out he's been the one murdering comic book writers. And there's all sorts of like government FBI stuff going on and this and that. And
I was just thinking Negan needs to meet Milk and Cheese.
But Donnie Cates is the main character in this issue, and he's trying to figure out what's going on because he's not writing this anymore. Things are completely out of control. It gets so meta. So he ends up sacrificing himself to try and stop this madness. Then it ends up. I'll give you the next issue cliffhanger in that. Here's Donnie Cates dying. And he's like, I'm dying, and it's not stopping the story. What does he say? Comics aren't made by writers, kid. Words are made by writers. Ideas only become real when someone draws it. So now they have to kill Jeff Shaw. That's the next issue. Who is the artist of the comic. So this has gotten so bizarre.
Now all we need is for Grant Morrison to pop up.
Yeah. Hey, as long as he's not telling me the book sucks, I'm okay.
And then two episodes down the road, you have Alan Moore shows up and he banishes Grant Morrison into the negative zone.
And then Alan Moore says that everything sucks, and he goes back to Northampton.
Well, the reason I didn't read Animal Man was because I picked up some random issue and it was Grant Morrison starring in it, and he said, "Why are you reading this stupid comic book? Put it down."
That was the last issue.
I went, okay. I never went back and read any of them. The writer told me not to read it. What am I supposed to do?
No, but Animal Man gets progressively more bizarre issue after issue until Grant Morrison himself decides that you guys are so stupid for reading this. But he only becomes insufferable when he starts writing the Doom Patrol.
The only thing I remember about the Doom Patrol is the villain who in the Legion of Dada had every superpower until you thought of it.
Yeah.
That was just amusing. Other than that, I don't remember it. But I remember liking it because my friend Rob was buying it. And he's like, you got to read these. So he gave me, I don't know, a dozen issues or so. And I read them and enjoyed it, but didn't go and get them myself.
No, the thing is, Grant Morrison insists on doing some name dropping about people whose books he was reading at the time. And they're like, name dropping is the fastest way to make yourself appear intelligent. Especially if the other person has no idea what you're talking about.
Name dropping.
So I'll drop Paulo's name more often, see if I can make myself appear more intelligent.
Nobody's going to take you seriously.
Nobody does anyways.
Is Chris still alive? He seems to be winding down there.
I'm alive.
All right, just checking.
I'm alive. I was just pondering the things that Mike Marasegan told me the other day.
And what did he tell you?
He said, drop my name and everyone will think you're smart, even if they don't know who I am.
Good plan.
Didn't work.
Maybe not for you.
I don't know who Mike Marasegan is. So.
I think that's the point.
Okay.
That's Chris's dry sense of humor.
Somebody just said that, and then so I was just riffing off of that.
I know.
Was it Scott or Paulo?
That was Paulo.
That was me.
Yeah.
I thought that's what you were riffing on, but it was too dry.
Yeah, but then Paulo no-anded me. I had nowhere to go after that.
He treated it like I usually treat Scott's puns. I just ignore them.
Doesn't matter. They'll still keep coming.
Oh, I know. There's no stopping them.
No, that's true.
The pun is mightier than the sword.
Yes, indeed.
That's not what Mike Marasegan says.
Now you're amusing, Paulo.
Oh, so Mike Marasegan now is Tyler Durden, right?
Is that a made-up name or a real one? Either way.
No, he's got to be a character in a Superman title with a name like that.
No, that's a Stan Lee name. It's actually Superman too. He does.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, I couldn't just invent the name, so I just used the name of a real guy that I know.
You used his name in vain.
Huh?
You used his name in vain.
What, did I say it in vain?
That's what it's called when you just use someone's name to use it.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that what vascular surgeons do?
I have only heard of using somebody's name in vain when it comes to the Lord.
Yep. And the same way, you don't just call on the Lord for
Wait a
a
minute.
joke.
Which
you don't
Lord
call
are
on
we
Mark
talking about?
Mercegan's name.
Are we talking about Jack Lord from Hawaii Five-O? Or John Lord from Deep Purple?
That just reminds me. Magnum PI just got canceled. I was enjoying that show.
Why?
Second incarnation of it. Why was I enjoying it, or why did it get canceled?
Yeah, why were you enjoying it?
I liked it. It was fun.
No,
I liked it. It was okay.
I gave it half a season during the
essentially-
first season.
It got better when it turned into a straight up action show. It tried to kind of be a mystery detective show, and it wasn't that good at it. Then it turned into a straight up action show. It was just fun. Like there was, after about I think it was the end of the first season, definitely into the second season, they were always in a car racing. So the plot became shoot from the hip. It was just kind of like constant. There was no sitting there pondering ever. It was just go from this clue to this clue to this clue to this clue, racing in the sports car. and she became his straight up partner. There was no more trying to convince
it was
her to
really
do
Starsky
something.
and Hutch, right?
What was that?
So you were saying it's really Starsky and Hutch, right?
I haven't seen Starsky and Hutch in so long that I don't remember it. Huge fan of the original Magnum, but never got into the recent one. I've watched the original one, but I haven't watched it since the 80s.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I watched any of those.
But Tom Selleck is charming in everything he does. So
Tom Selleck currently stars in a cop show. What's it called?
Blue Bloods.
Blue Bloods. Yeah, I still watch that.
Mike Mercegan told Chris that he should watch it.
Yep.
Did you know Tom Selleck was the original preferred choice for Indiana Jones?
Yep.
I can see that. He was not related to the original Magnum. It was a straight up remake. New Magnum, new TC, new Higgins, new who was the third one? TC Higgins. New Rick. Some of the originals made guest appearances, but
Just how much long is it going to be before we get a remake of T.J. Hooker?
never. I don't
With
think it's big
Shatner.
enough to
Or
with
10
Shatner.
Yeah.
With Shatner.
Or with Sidney Pollack playing Shatner.
With Jerry Mathers as the Beaver.
Jerry Mathers just announced the other day that he has cancer.
There was a Canadian Newfoundland show called Republic of Doyle that reminded me of Magnum. I've heard of that show. I've seen it on those British channels. Horrible Idea. Needs to be a continuation. It was okay as a reboot. There's nothing. Listen, I liked Magnum, but there was nothing so precious about Magnum that it couldn't be rebooted.
Yeah.
It's not like Magnum was the greatest TV show of all time. It was a
Right.
solid TV
Why
show.
remake it?
Yeah, I watched the Hawaii Five-O remake.
I didn't watch that one. I never watched the original Hawaii Five-O.
It was also straight shoot from the hip, straight action adventure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Magnum was good too because it was on a cold winter night. It was nice to see the Hawaiian scenery too. That was another reason to like it. Once again, I'm not telling you it's the greatest show of all time. It was just a fun little action show.
Are you seriously trying to convince everyone?
No, I'm
Best show of all
facetiously
time.
trying to convince everyone.
Are you saying it was slightly better than the Real Housewives of New Jersey?
I wouldn't know,
Okay.
never having seen that one.
There's one case of a spin-off that I like better than the original. NCIS Los Angeles is better than NCIS.
Uh-huh.
What is it up
Because
to now, like NCIS Trinidad.
There's an NCIS New Orleans with Scott Bakula, and this year there's an NCIS Hawaii, which sucks.
I'm so glad you didn't say Scott Baio.
They did a Knight Rider back in the mid 2000s. That was Michael Knight's son, which is a good print. Yeah, I've never watched the original Knight Rider. Never.
And there was a Team Knight Rider where they had a team of talking cars.
Ooh.
You get the feeling that superhero editors wrote these books.
Let me ask you this: what was the greatest car comic book of all time? Has there been one?
Alex Toth's
Hot Wheels always comes up. I would say the I forget which, like issue 6 of Deadly Class had like one of the, I think it was around there, had one of the greatest car chase scenes I've ever seen.
Frazetta also did Johnny Comet.
Yeah, there was a British racing car comic called Skid Solo, which is probably one of the best titles of all time.
I've had Johnny Comet on my shelf for about a decade now, unread, so I'm going to have to read those one of these days.
If you wanted, you can give it to me. I had ordered it. It got canceled because they didn't have enough orders the first time, and when they finally printed it, they didn't give my shop a book.
There's a great Hawkeye car chase. Okay, Transformers, cars in that.
In Europe we have the Michel Vaillant comic, which I have a feeling that it's it's not the longest running. No, it is the longest. It is the longest running European comic book in France.
There was one called Dead Body Road from Image a while back. That it was a good car one too. There was a lot of cars involved in that. I think there was a second volume of it too, but I didn't buy it because that had a different artist.
You don't remember Highway 1?
Highway 1? A comic?
Yeah, it was a Marvel comic about truck drivers.
Oh, the
US one.
Oh, US one, yeah.
US one.
Yes, that's right. US one. I remember that one.
He had a radio in his skull.
Jack Kirby's Turbo Teen cartoon.
Oh, I love Turbo Teen.
I remember that transformation being creepy. He would his arms would all of a sudden stretch out and his hands would turn into wheels.
And his face turned into the hood.
That was like some body horror to me. Team America was motorcycles. That kind of counts.
Mm-hmm. And there's a manga called Initial D, which is about street racing and delivering bread.
There's got to be a lot of manga
delivering
about car
bread.
Yeah,
bread.
Yeah. It's they have kind of a weird car to deliver bread in. It's a Toyota Sprinter Trueno, which is kind of a pocket racer.
Are there any racing comics published in Italy?
Not that I remember.
Oh, interesting.
Cars and comics. Let's see. There was the Spider-Mobile. Who remembers that?
Oh, you can't. Well, it's not a car, but you can't forget the Thanos copter.
The Spider-Mobile issues were some of my first Spider-Man comics.
I remember some of the.
When it was some weird thing in the plot where they wanted to. Some company wanted to license a Spider-Mobile, so they gave Spider-Man a car. He was like, what am I going to do with a car? I can't remember how it ended up being a car that could drive up the side of buildings. I don't know if it was bit by a radioactive spider or what, but all of a sudden, and I think he had to fight it.
A radioactive Herbie.
I think he had to end up fighting the Spider-Mobile or something. Because it was a dune buggy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect for New York.
Yes.
Yeah.
With all the dunes. Spider-Man also needs a spider dog. Of course.
Spider-Man had a spider dog in the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends cartoons. His dog was called Miss Lion. And apparently it was a male dog.
Named Miss Lion. He does whatever a spider can, and they own dogs. Huh.
Paulo, you missed this, but earlier I was telling him I saw a solicitation earlier today. There's an upcoming Marvel Spider-Man project. I'm not exactly sure what it entails. Neil Gaiman, Kurt Busiek, Terry Dodson, and Michael Cho are working on it.
Wow.
There's a few other people thrown in there too, but I'm like, hell's frozen over, and I'm interested in an upcoming Marvel project.
I
Saying
am not.
hello.
Not only am I back, I'm front too.
The Wheeled Warrior.
Jason the
forgot
Wheeled
about
Warriors.
I completely forgot about the Wheeled Warriors.
Yeah, I remember the
Probably
theme
for a good
song.
reason, I would imagine.
Was that a comic? Was there a comic book adaptation of that? Did Marvel do it?
Marvel didn't do it.
I don't remember who did it.
We're really testing our memories with comic books about cars.
I bet they're better. They're still better than that old Jungle comic that we read.
Jungle comic. Yeah, there was a lot. That just reminded. There was a Charlton comic called what was it? It was like a Hot Rods, I think it was.
Yeah,
Like in the
that's,
60s.
I had some issues with that when I was a kid.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Hot
I've
Rods and
never
Riz-
seen one.
Did they ever do a Johnny Lightning comic?
Well, I don't. Not that I know of.
Okay, I just wondered.
No, but Johnny Lightning sponsored the Indianapolis 500 winner in 1970 and 1971.
Oh, that would have been a good time for a comic book.
Yeah.
They were winners.
The driver was Al Unser, and the car owner was Parnelli Jones.
Uh-huh.
That's scary. And what year was that? 71, 70?
70 and 71.
I remember both those names, but I was only 2 years old in 1970.
Well, Al Unser continued to race until 1992. His son, Al Unser Jr., was IndyCar champion in 1993. The Parnelli Jones team folded in 1977 after the Cosworth DFX debacle, because they developed an engine, the turbo engine, to fight off the Offie. But they used a Formula One power plant as the basis, and the guys who did the Formula One power plant, instead of letting Parnelli have the rights to build and market the engine in the US, decided to do everything themselves. So Parnelli Jones and his business partner, who owned a chain of Ford dealerships in California, lost a lot of money on it, and the team stopped.
I have to comment on Damien's comment there.
Scott keeps trying to get me to drive down to Stuart Ang's bookstore.
Stuart is a bookstore in Torrance, California, much like Bud Plant Comic Art, that specializes in comics, animation, fantasy, science fiction art, that sort of thing. Damien, if you ever get down there, you better get there before I do. Because I will buy everything they have until I run out of money.
It's an 18-hour drive.
It's a cross-country flight for me.
Yeah. In Graphic Man, we mentioned Hot Wheels, the Alex. That's the first thing Scott mentioned, the Alex Toth Hot Wheels. There, matter of fact, one of the restoration guys I follow on Twitter, I think, was doing some work on the Alex Toth Hot Wheels to kind of restore that. Gotcha. It turns out I found them on Twitter. There's some guys who restore comics kind of as a hobby. Right. They just take scans of old comics and try to make them look good. Like one guy's doing all the Micronauts. How come Ghost Rider has never had a car storyline or like a spaceship? Bike or a horse? It has to be a biker. I vaguely remember something with a car.
To Space Ghost-esque, and he would get sued.
Doesn't the new Ghost Rider drive a car?
The current Ghost Rider drives a car, yes.
Oh, that's right. They did have a Ghost Rider and a car. Yeah, and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, the Ghost Rider had a car.
Didn't Frank Castle become like the cosmic Ghost Rider?
The less said about that, the better.
Yeah. Isn't Gasoline Alley around cars? It originally was, but then it stopped being. Gasoline Alley started out as a car comic strip in like 1918, and the story was in like 1918, if you had a car, you were a hobbyist. So the Gasoline Alley was a literal title in that you didn't keep your car at your house. You had a little garage kind of in town or wherever. And so the Gasoline Alley was the alley where all the people kept their cars.
Kind of like a marina for boats.
Yeah, kind of like a marina for boats. And it was about all these guys. And it eventually, like within a few years, turned into a family strip. But the cars were it was still car centered. But Gasoline Alley, like I said, Gasoline Alley is one of my favorite comic strips of all time. The early stuff. I never read it until Drawn and Quarterly, was it? Started reprinting it under the name Walt and Skeezix, because the strips were in the public domain, but the name Gasoline Alley wasn't. So they called them Walter and Skeezix, who are the two main characters' names. And they're like I said, the great comic strips of my lifetime are Peanuts, The Far Side, Calvin and Hobbes, and Doonesbury. And Gasoline Alley is as good as them. It's now it's up there in my top 5 now with those 4. Like it was long before my lifetime, and I don't vouch for the ones that came out that weren't done by what's his name, Frank King. But all the stuff through the 20s is terrific. Skeezix is not a name you hear often, no. And it turns out it used to be, they say in the strip, in the book, it was a name for like some kind of an orphaned horse or a foundling horse. That's why he got the name. It's like, we just don't know what that is. There were a lot more horses around in 1920 than there are now.
Slang changes a lot over time.
Yeah. I think motorcycles give you a more interesting visual where you can see Ghost Rider better. That's probably true, because if someone's in a car, it's tough drawing someone in a car.
Mm-hmm.
Because the interiors of cars are boring. And that shot from the windshield is boring.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use a down shot and an up shot, you don't know they're in a car. And a down shot you can't get unless it's a convertible.
Yeah.
So
who does really good car shots like that is Francisco Francavilla.
Yeah. Some guys are like I said, that issue of Deadly Class had one of the best car chases I've ever seen in a book. It was just real in a comic. It was just really done well. I got rid of all my issues, or I'd tell you what issue it was. Mm-hmm. Any car chases in your Officer Clausen, Chris?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
You have to chase down the cat burglar fish.
Ah.
Now
is the
Hong Kong Fooey?
What was that?
The guy who had the best car was Hong Kong Fooey.
I don't remember his car at all.
It was only ever used in like the opening sequence. It was like the chassis was almost like a Chinese takeaway box that would fold up into like a Fred Flintstone kind of thing.
Do I have a favorite movie for cars?
In cars, here in my car.
My favorite car movie is The Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of car chases in that.
I have not seen The Blues Brothers in so long.
Maybe the first 2 Herbie movies.
Herbie the Love Bug and Herbie the Love Bug rides
I would
again.
have not expected that. I figured it'd be more something like Bullet or
I do like Bullet, but the thing is, car people only want to watch the chase scene throughout San Francisco. By the way, there are ridiculous moments in that chase scene. Both of the cars lose like 12 hubcaps during the chase.
Right.
Hubcaps flying everywhere.
But one thing that we car people appreciate is the fact that there's no soundtrack during the chase scene. It's
Mhm.
just the roar of a Dodge Charger and a Ford Mustang. That's it.
Tell you one movie that could have been a lot better without a soundtrack was Lady Hawk.
Lady Hawk.
Yeah, they got Alan Parsons Project to do the soundtrack, which is a contemporary electronic.
Okay.
It just did not fit the movie at all. It was just like fish out of water.
I've been watching have you seen this TV show, The Flight Attendant?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
I've been enjoying that one. We're in season 2 now, but every now and then I think it's supposed to be Hitchcockian. Some of the
I didn't
scenes.
know that. Okay.
And some of the music too. But sometimes the music, I'm like, this sounds like Planet of the Apes. You know the Planet of the Apes like chase scene music? That's sort of like funky, not quite funky, but sort of what is it? 60s atonal at time, weird Planet of the Apes. They use some of that in this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
But I think it comes from Hitchcock too at times. I'm not sure, but it's a fun show if you ever want to watch something. But sometimes I'm looking for gorillas on horses.
I'm sure that would spice things up.
Has anyone ever read the Marvel magazine from the 70s, Planet of the Apes?
Mm-mm.
I've read a few of them. I know Tim probably has several of them.
Yeah, I've always wanted to read that one, but I never seen them. And Wacky Racers had some. Yeah, I always liked that one. Wacky. As a kid, that was one of my favorite cartoons when it came on.
Now that you bring it up, how come nobody's ever done a comic of Ed Big Daddy Ross Cars?
Because the license would be.
Oh,
much?
yeah, that's true. Yeah. But I could see, if you got the right person working on it, they would make an interesting comic of that.
Yeah. Love the Mike Ploog stories in Marvel Planet of the Apes. Yeah, his work is good. I would like that's just something I've always meant to check out, yet never have had the opportunity to.
Right.
There must be a collected edition of it out there somewhere now, too, because I think I've seen it, but I'm not sure. I may have seen it on J-Rock's channel. I'm not 100% sure.
I've never heard of a Planet of the Apes collection. I'm really not sure who owns the rights to the.
There have been indie Planet of the Apes comics in the last 10 years. I think I don't know who does them, but I think they may have.
Malibu at one time had Planet of the Apes license way back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I don't think anybody can reprint the Marvel stuff.
I have the reprint magazines from Beneath the Planet of the Apes. It has James Franciscus on the back cover. Okay. Boom collected the Marvel Planet of the Apes. Okay.
Oh, nice. Okay. But did they collect them magazine by magazine or storyline by storyline? Because there's a kind of a ridiculous thing on the Planet of the Apes magazines because there are no done in one stories. I think there are a few. There are maybe a couple, but
most of the time it's continued.
Yeah, it's continued because they're adapting the movies, and then there's a backup story that's in between the movies, and it's usually a continued story.
Okay, so Graphic Man's reprint magazines of Beneath the Planet of the Apes, collected in trade, photo cover, but the interiors are black and white. Okay. I picked up a black and white Planet of the Apes comic from Independent a while back, and there was a Ninja Turtle Mirage Ratfink love letter comic. Very Big Daddy. Oh, okay. There was a Ratfink Ninja Turtles one. Interesting.
The UK version, the UK magazine of Planet of the Apes was weekly, and when they ran out of US stories to reprint at Marvel UK. They had somebody, the Marvel UK office, redraw Kill Raven, turned it into Ape Slayer, It ran in issues number 23 to 30 or 31 of Planet of the Apes UK. And they have more than turning Killraven into Ape Slayer. They put gorilla faces on the Martian robots.
Wow.
I found out about it by accident because I was looking for info in a couple of UK comics, and there's this wiki about British comics, and I found Ape Slayer.
There's a really good website about British comics that I have bookmarked somewhere.
It's probably the same.
Very
Mm-hmm.
I was just that just reminded me. I can't remember what I was watching on YouTube, but somebody was putting down the Killraven series, saying it was boring. I'm like, the Craig Russell stuff was good.
Okay, it may have been boring, but Craig Russell drew it. It's got to be good.
I didn't think it was boring at all when Craig Russell was drawing it. That was some of my favorite stuff as a kid. I still enjoy it. The Herb Trimpe stuff, I might agree that that's boring.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Sleepy has those UK Apes comics. Crazy. Crazy. And I'd just like to say, I was watching Sleepy Reader's comic book countdown today. And his number one comic was, what was that? Twig, the one I liked last week too. That I was saying, he said the same thing as I did, that I'm not sure if I want to buy this, or the art is so nice in it, I kind of want an oversized hardcover of it. And Sleepy, I think last week before he read it, was like, who knows if Image is going to come out with an oversized hardcover of that. Now I bet he's wishing for one too, because the art in that was so nice.
I remember watching Terrence's video. He had one night where he had a little thing about Twig. I was like, that's a book that interested me the most out of everything he talked about.
Mm-hmm. It was the art in it was just so nice.
Yeah, the art looked really neat.
But like what stopped it from kind of being, because Sleepy was saying most of his books were B. They were all kind of B's this week. He said about his, and to me too, the whole thing that stopped Twig from being an A to me was I really didn't have a grip on the story. It kind of intrigued me. Yeah. Twig needs an oversized edition, exactly. But I'll give Twig a second issue when it comes up for final order cutoff. But Sleepy, I have to show you both of these. I don't know if he got these this week, but 8 Billion Genies, the first issue was good. And this, I got the logoless one in Grimm, the first issue was good. So those were two first issues that are going to get a second issue for me. And if I like the second issue, I might put it on my pull list. Got an issue number 1 joke ready, Chris?
Is it issue 1? All right, issue 1, and issue 100 walk into a bar. That's
Munden's Bar.
My local comic shop guy said a ton of kids picked up Twig, which is great. Yeah.
So between all of them, they picked up a branch.
A branch. 8 Billion Genies I did get. I liked it, but hated the color. That's funny. I didn't hate the color, but I thought the art was a little ugly. But it was drawing ugly people, so yeah, the color did not stand out to me one way or the other. But
color bugs me more and more the older I get.
Well, bad color can.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't particularly notice the color in 8 Billion Genies because the art was ugly. As a matter of fact, let me give it a glance. I could, looking at this double page spread, I can see how he might not like this color. But I think the color is just following the artwork, which is ugly. Yeah, I didn't separate the color from the artwork. I thought it was all kind of ugly. But that was their aesthetic. It wasn't like, I don't think it was ugly by accident kind of thing. But yeah, that color is kind of ugly now. It's funny. Sometimes you don't notice things till the second time through.
Thank you for bringing it up to his attention now.
Now I won't be able to notice.
Oh, the way I don't like this either.
That's like, have you seen that when Todd McFarlane pointed out the error in that Batman cover of his? He's like, I can tell you about it, but then you'll never not be able to see it. You know, I think it was the one Batman cover Todd McFarlane did at the beginning of his career. And if you saw it, you'd recognize that it's Batman in this big cape. But there's one part that's supposed to be colored yellow that's white. Oh, Wilson's with us. How are you doing, Wilson?
Hello, good evening, guys.
Hey,
That's like the error that Todd McFarlane pointed out. That
Well, you realize I'll be the last person to complain about something not being colored yellow.
Yep. Wilson, did you get a new mic?
I have this earphone set up.
I could just hear you clearer.
Oh, okay, great. I was wondering if it actually worked well.
It works.
Okay, good.
Oh, but Wilson, as a production guy, I got to show you this. Not that you'll be able to see it, but if you're at a comic shop, the cover of Spawn 329, I believe they printed the 72 DPI preview file instead of the actual art.
Ah,
Because this is low res, this picture. This is not high res. I'm like, how does that happen?
someone used a JPEG instead of a TIFF, and
Yeah, but
production things are always late.
not even a high res JPEG, a low res JPEG. I'm like, whoa.
Or maybe that's what they were going for. They were being artsy.
Somebody made the PDF without with the high res file being missing, and said, "Oh well, I don't have the file. They didn't give it to me. Who cares?"
That's what they
I
said.
saw this when I got it home. I was like, "Holy cow! What happened? That is not high resolution." But I'm told I'm the only one who's going to notice.
What happened.
And what are you working on tonight, Wilson?
Tonight, I actually have finished lettering Casa Grande for Paper Cuts. That is a sister show to Loud House. So that all the lettering of that has been done and sent out. So what I could be working on, or what I should be working on, is the rest of Loud House.
So you're doing Loud House and a Loud House spin-off.
Yes.
And Wilson, this is Scott. Scott Wilson. I don't think you guys have ever met.
Hello, Scott.
Nice to meet you.
Scott's been our missing member for a month or so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've been on hiatus. So.
He's been on hiatus.
Or low-atus, or whatever it is.
Chris is on page 120 of his coloring, so he's chugging right along. Is that past the halfway point?
Yeah.
All right. Downhill side. Color that I loved was in this week's Norse mythology. Don't know if you talked about it yet. I didn't get a new Norse mythology this week.
Speaking of, I saw on Facebook earlier today where Craig Russell hand-colored the original art.
Oh, wow. To Norse mythology?
Yeah, differently than, well, he did it for his own purpose to make a print.
Oh, okay.
But he colored differently than Laverne Kandinsky did.
Okay. So. I don't remember. Yeah, I didn't get an issue of Norse mythology this week. Was I shorted, or did you get one from, I can't remember that. I got one a couple weeks ago. What issue was it? I think the last one I got was volume 3, number 3. But yeah, I definitely didn't get an issue of Norse mythology, which is on my pull list, so. which means if it could have been shorted to my shop. I don't.
It'll bring a tear to your eye.
Yeah. If it's shorted, I'll get it next week or the week after. But maybe Sleepy's was shorted. Number 4. Okay, it must have been shorted to me then. I did not get it. And did not notice it was missing.
Has the second series of that come out in hardcover yet?
I don't know, but it must be because we're
I
on
have the
issue
first
4
one.
of series 3.
This one.
So it must be out. All about Loki turning into a salmon. There we go. That's good
Salmon.
stuff.
Cell bass.
Soul Bass? What?
Cell bass.
No bass. Can you imagine Craig Russell drawing intentionally in Sal Bass's art style? That would be
be
neat to
funny.
see. Yeah.
That would be very funny. So he was the man with the golden arm designer, right?
Oh, he did title designs for so many different things.
I think he was the man with the golden arm.
Yeah, he did the title designs for a Mad, 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 Mad World amongst
Yeah,
many
that's
other
him.
things. Yeah.
Have you been reading Norse mythology and trades, Scott?
I haven't been reading in trades. I got the first series in hardcover, but I've been picking up floppies here and there. But that's another series I'm behind on too.
He's behind on it all.
Oh
have
yeah.
have you read Craig Russell's adaptation of Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology, Wilson?
No, I have not. I haven't read any new graphic novel in quite some time. I haven't even been to a comic book shop in
You and
months.
Chris are too busy.
I've been wanting to go. The only thing that I have gotten new recently is some action figures. Let me just grab one.
Action.
I was buying that Norse mythology book.
So I got this in an order recently. So it is the Excalibur set
Ah.
from Hasbro. And I mainly got it. I mean, I like all the characters anyway, but I mainly got it for Lockheed.
Yeah, let's give you a solo
here.
layout.
Dragon.
Sure. You got my Lockheed. So that's Kitty Pryde.
It's Kitty Pryde, Captain Britain, and McGann.
Okay.
Who?
Those characters from Excalibur is the
I
It's the
used to
set.
read Excalibur back then. I can't remember who was drawing it. It's driving me crazy.
Alan Davis.
Yes, thank you.
Alan Davis
Exactly,
was the penciler on the book. I don't recall the
Yeah.
writer.
My friend Don is a huge
Um,
Davis fan.
First Chris Claremont, then Davis himself.
Okay,
Was Brian
And-
Neary inking him?
I think it was.
Mm.
I think it
He
was
inked a
Neary.
lot of his stuff.
Because that's Marvel UK offices.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, Excalibur was made in the U.S.
With who?
Excalibur was made in the U.S. by the X office.
Oh, okay.
There was another version that was Marvel UK. I don't remember.
That was Knights of Pendragon.
Knights of Pendragon. Okay.
Okay.
That one featured Union Jack.
Right.
And I think with the inspector from the Captain Britain stories, which also appears in a few Excaliburs, Diet Thomas was also a member of the Knights of Pendragon.
Mm.
The Knights
All those memories scares me.
Yeah, I remember the name of the Welsh police commissioner.
I can't remember what I had for dinner 8 days ago, but sometimes I could pull some completely random character out of my brain that I haven't thought of in 40 years.
So I collected toys over the years, and I stopped and bought them. I have a huge love with Secret Wars because that's what brought me into comics. So I had got into toys, and like everything else, you buy the toys, you display them for a little while, you put them in a box. And I did that for years, last 30 years. And one day I was looking for something, and I kicked the box over, and it was like, oh, these look really cool. I should not just keep them in the box. So I took them out and I put the Secret Wars toys, my original ones, into a shadow box, and I have it hanging up behind me in the studio. And it's like, well, I got all these other toys in there. I'm very low on shelf space at the time. So what I would do is I would put it on a shelf, get tired of it, put it into a box, get another obsession, have those on the shelves, put them in a box. And I did that for the last 30 years. And then now I'm just going through the boxes, deciding what I'm going to really keep, what I'm going to toss. And I always try to make the original group of Secret Wars characters. There were 21 superheroes that went to Secret Wars, not including what villains was there. And I always wanted to like recreate one of the scenes with the action figures. And and now with this one character, I'm only missing one that was never made. The original Captain Marvel. Now I think she's called Photon. She has like 3 different names.
Yeah.
But back then she was Captain Marvel, and they never made her action figure in that costume from that time period. And the one that came out, quote unquote, recently, the last 5 years or so, was with a San Diego exclusive pack. That is no way I'm paying the amount that they're asking for on eBay. So over the years, I try to make that set, but either it was discontinued or Toy Biz switched over to Marvel Legends. So they kept changing things. So I never really got to do the whole collection. And as I'm going through these boxes of toys, you can see where I stop. It's because it's like they just didn't make those characters. And then recently I was, again, just putting them up, decided to display them and realized, oh, I almost have them all. And it was one of those things that I took pictures of it on my Instagram and stuff like that. And I did a little video where it shows everyone except for the 2 that I was missing, which is Captain Marvel, and before was Lockheed. Now I have Lockheed. And it's like, oh, I almost have that collection completed.
Did you ever think about getting like a custom figure to do the one that was never actually produced?
I have. I've actually customized my own figures as well. I mean, it's been decades since I've done that, but I always thought if I can't find it, I would eventually make it. Wilson needs Brazilian Secret Wars. The Brazilian, is he talking about the 3 characters that were only printed overseas? Because it was Iceman, Constrictor, and I want to say Hobgoblin from the original series. Because the rest of them came out on this set.
The Brazilian Secret Wars comic came out ahead of continuity. So it was completely redrawn by the Brazilian publisher to omit Captain Marvel.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Are those the hardcover books?
Is it for the reason thinking it is?
Okay.
Why did they draw her out?
Because she hadn't been introduced to the comic yet.
Oh, okay.
They also took out Rogue because she wasn't a member of the X-Men yet. And they came up with some lame idea that of why Storm had the Mohawk, which hadn't been introduced yet. They also said it was the Beyonder who fixed Professor X's legs, which by the time he didn't need the wheelchair.
Okay, those I never saw. What I have collect outside of the Secret Wars comics and the Secret Wars toys are the Secret Wars coloring books, and they were activity books as well. I got those because, again, it's just new artwork that wasn't part of the original series. And then I also had gotten recently some promotional materials that was used to make ads, which were just black and white images of the toys that you could cut out and make your own ad with them.
Almost like color forms, huh?
Something similar to it, yes.
Gotcha.
Secret Wars toy. I can remember my friend John. This was in the 90s and we worked with us at Marvel, John Bly. This was the time when I think Toy Biz made them. Remember there was, I forget what the line was, but they were supposed to be like Mego figures.
Yes,
that came out in the
I
90s.
I know exactly which ones. Give me a second.
I'll give him a second. Like I said, my friend, I have some of those too, but like a bunch of us were collecting them at the time because they were the Mego figures were the toys of people my age. So people my age were collecting them because like the Mego figures
these
were
were
my
called-
generation's toys.
These were called famous covers, Marvel milestones.
Hold on, let me get you Solo again, just so we can see.
It's all full of dust from being in storage.
There
So
we go.
so here's a Falcon, and it was called famous covers, Marvel milestones, and they were made very similar to Migos.
Yeah. A little more fancy, but the same scale and general joints and things like that.
Exactly. Amigos were the first ones to make action figures, and the guy who created them licensed all superheroes from Marvel and DC. And here's one from the Vision.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, the hardest one to get is the one for the mail away, which was Aunt May.
That one was in the discount bin for the longest time.
I never got to get one.
For a brief time, it was the easiest one to get because nobody wanted it.
Right.
It was one of those figures. But like I said, my friend John would collect those, and he had them out of their packages out on the bookshelf.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife, who went to college for dance, used to put them in ballerina poses all the time. So John would come home, and all the superheroes would be pirouetting and doing point and all the ballerina, and he'd be like, Phil Flan, and he'd have to put them back in superhero poses. But it was funny to see them all posed like ballerinas.
That is funny.
It just struck me. You know who we need some action figures of? Or the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Don't they have a cartoon coming out or a movie or something?
It's already out.
Oh, it's already out.
Yeah, it got very, very mixed reviews.
Ah.
People either love it or they absolutely hate it. There doesn't seem to be much middle ground there.
Yeah, the only Freak Brothers I have, I don't know how many years ago it came out. I have a collected edition up there, and I read about half of it. There's only so much, 70s drug humor I can take before I'm like, all right, this was not meant to be read sober in a collected edition.
Yeah.
It's just not that kind of comic.
I don't know if you can keep buying Spawn at $3.
Yeah, but I only read it one issue at a time. Imagine reading that Spawn compendium that has 50 issues in it. I don't think I could do it.
No, thank you.
Spawn. Can't believe that they printed the low-res file.
I don't think it's out yet, but one book I'm looking forward to is this anthology book that Eric Powell is doing.
What's the name of it?
I don't remember. It's like Eric Powell's the Albatross, some big spectacular. I don't know what the exact title of it is, but it's going to have the Goon and Hillbilly, amongst other things.
Oh, I'm going to have to get that one. See, the problem is those really small publishers don't always show up on my final order cutoff email. They got a lot of small publishers there, but like Terry Moore books, since he publishes one book, never. So I want to make sure that I get Terry Moore's next book that's coming out, which is going to be about the Parker girls. Matter of fact,
Speaking of,
I think I have to order it now. I'll have to make sure I send an email.
Did you order the Martini version of Parker that was done by Darwin Cook?
No, because I want to, but it's really expensive, and I got to get that hate book first. And I was also thinking, do you know that Darwin Cook did not want them printed at that larger size? For whatever reason.
What is rationale for that? What about?
I don't know. But I said to myself, you know what? I may be able to get, because I have the first one signed by Darwin, Parker the Hunter. I may be able to get the next three cheap, used. Maybe I'll go that way instead. Right. I do like oversized stuff. So, Are the Freak Brothers on some very obscure streaming service?
I think they're on Tubi, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, that's fairly. Albatross anthology was in previews, so assume it's coming in July.
Yeah, I knew it was coming up soon, but I just didn't know.
I'll have to.
I was like, new Hillbilly. I was like, yeah,
Let
I'm
me
there.
write that one down. Albatross anthology. I'm writing blind because I don't have my glasses on. Why didn't I do that? And what's the other one I need? Oh, Terry Moore Parker Girls. I have to remember to order these. Parker Girls. I'm not even sure if that's the title, but that's what it's about. But those are two I have to make because I didn't get a first printing of what was the last book Terry Moore did? I've all of a sudden forgot.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Serial, the last book he did. I had to reorder a second printing of the first issue because I just didn't get the order in time because, like I said, I have to. Usually, I just click on the email, the final order cutoff. I just click the link, but for some of these really small stuff, they're not on the final order cutoff email. How inconvenient for me.
First world problems.
Fourth world problems.
I see what you did there.
I actually made up a meme of Darkseid saying fourth world problems that I post whenever someone posts first world problems.
That's a fantastic idea.
I picked up an old issue of Fish Police. Didn't understand it. Liked the art and want more. Can you Marvel Bullpen guys explain the book and why it existed? What is it popular? Well, I can as an old indie guy, I can tell you Fish Police was first an indie book.
Yeah.
And it was part of the black and white explosion around the time of the Turtles, probably a few years after the Turtles. And it was a pretty well done book. I forget who did it. But it became hot for a brief period. Fish Police, the black and white Fish Police indie book, like the first issue would cost you $20 to $50.
Right.
He somehow parlayed that into a cartoon.
Which I saw.
What was that?
I saw it. I remember it was on. I think I saw it on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, there was. It was. I think it was around. But he parlayed it into a cartoon, which got on TV. I don't know if it started on the Cartoon Network. It was on another network, and they picked. However, I don't think there was a lot of episodes of it.
No, I don't think it lasted too long. I think Mark McKenna might have inked some of it.
But as a consequence of it being a cartoon, Marvel licensed it to make a comic book of the cartoon. So that's why the Fish Police comic existed.
Kind of like when they licensed Cadillacs and Dinosaurs and made a separate comic from it that Topps produced.
Now, Comic Crack, do you have because I remember liking it. I bought it. There was only a few black and white issues. Do you have the black and white indie issues or the color Marvel issues?
I have some of the old indie issues.
Yeah, I don't have any of the color Marvel.
Few, not many.
Yeah, but the Cadillacs and Dinosaurs came out through Epic because it reprinted the old stuff from Kitchen Sink. But the Fish Police Marvel did not reprint the indie comics.
That was its own thing.
Okay. The only reason that thing didn't come out through Star Comics is because Star Comics no longer existed as a brand.
Yeah.
I mentioned Fish Police when I did the video on Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. I mentioned that both the Cadillacs and Dinosaurs were in Fish Police. I first heard of as cartoons on TV because and they only found out they were comics later.
All right. Did you ever go back and reread Xenozoic Tales after that?
Yeah. I've reread it twice now.
Those last two issues of Xenozoic Tales have some of the best art that's ever come out of the comics industry. They are that good.
They are definitely the best ones of the whole bunch, and they ought to be taking into account that it was those last issues that took a year to come out.
There's the Fish. Yeah, I guess. Terrence has the black and white stuff too. Fish Wrap Productions, issue 1. I only have 2 issues of it. This was the one that I think was printed in Canada.
What was the creator's name?
Steve Moncuse.
That was close. Okay.
I had forgotten that.
Yeah, so did I. I couldn't remember it.
Yeah, I would not have remembered the name
I was
at
thinking
all.
it was Mancuso, so it was closer than I thought.
So I have 2 issues of it. I don't know if any more of the black and white ever came out. There must have been more because it was a hot book ever so
There was a
briefly.
few. Yeah, there was.
1980 winter 1986.
Mhm.
I think there may have been more from another publisher, but these are the first 2 that I got. These need new bags. These are the original 1980s bags they're in.
The bags are getting kind of fishy.
We can get rid of those. They're not as clear as they once were.
Have they started like breaking down?
No, these ones don't break down.
Oh, okay. I
The
remember
early
going
80s
through.
bags break down. I think I got rid of they get slimy.
Yeah.
And rippling.
These ones are archival these are archival bags, so they don't break down, but they're still, the bags don't do anything to the comics. This is what the comics do to the bags.
Mm-hmm. Comics will rot your brain.
Yeah, because this is genuine newsprint over here. Nice and yellowed.
Here are the those Secret Wars catalog things I was talking about.
Let's see. Solo layout.
So they're almost like style sheets, like animation style.
Pretty much. So then you would cut them out, and then if your store was having a sale on certain ones, on whether it was like the vehicles,
Right.
and so it was one of those things where you could make an ad for your store
Mhm.
with them. And I thought that was a unique thing to put in the collection. I was going to put these like in the back of the in the back of like the drop box, and then here are the coloring books I was mentioning before.
Ah.
And here's the other one. I think there was only 3 or 4 coloring activity books made. I still have to track. I either still have to track it down, or I just have to look for it in my stuff because I usually keep it all together.
Fish Police versus Chris's Lobster Book, issue number 1 and then 100. 2-book set. There you go. Canada,
Sign me
printed
up.
in Canada. Oh, Kamiko. Yeah, I vaguely remembered. So I don't think I ever got the Kamiko issues. I guess it got so hot that it went to, I think those were self-published, that he actually got himself a publisher.
Mhm.
Just looking at CLZ, but the Kamiko run eventually changed over to Apple Comics. Oh, okay. My friend Ed Murr worked at Apple Comics
I remember. Yeah, wow.
during our college years.
Where is Apple Comics?
It
That name
was in
sounds familiar.
Connecticut.
It wasn't a Manhattan branch.
No.
So
Okay.
there was another publisher also too called Apple Press. Which is a
Okay.
company.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're hitting 8:45, so it's time to sign off. Let Paulo get to bed.
It was good talking to you guys.
Good talking to everyone.
Scott, it was nice meeting you.
Yeah, nice
Yep.
to meet you too.
Chris, you got some good work done.
Yeah, we got a couple more pages done. I'm on 125 right now.
And what was that guy's name? Mike Mancuso says so, or
Mike Marasigan.
Mike Marasini. He says Mike Marasini says you guys all have a good week.
It doesn't matter.
Take care. Have a good
Well,
weekend.
always-